Welcome. Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is I, your host, Q, coming to you yet again from my mother's basement, and I'm joined by my co-host, P. How goes it, P?
It goes fantastically, as always. I'm coming at you from a new location. I don't like it as much as the normal location, but I've got this nice, kind of like paisley going on in the background. That's not the right word, but the variations and the tones. So we're gonna make it work. What do we got today, man? We got a jam-packed show.
We got a jam-packed show indeed. We're going to kick things off in just a moment with some news and notes, but then after that, we are joined by none other than Junseth and American HODL for what is this now? Part 3, Part 2, and we're going to slay some Bitcoin heroes. To be honest, after our staff meeting just not even 5 minutes ago, I've got some spicy things that I'm going to throw out into this conversation, P. So hope you're ready. Buckle up for that. And then, of course, it's Monday, so we'll be joined by the Bitcoin Magazine Pro team. Dylan, LeClair, and Sam Roll will be giving us their market updates and what they're seeing. And we may even have a special guest for that. So stick around. We got a jam-packed episode, but let's dive into some news and notes.
Yeah, what's going on in the world? What's happened over the weekend?
So everyone's least favorite woman in charge of money, Janet Yellen, was on NBC's Meet the Press, where she alluded to the idea that the U.S. may not actually be in a recession. This take comes from you, from the same woman who thought that inflation would be transitory, not a big deal. Oh, yeah, and that it's Putin's fault. I mean, at a certain point, like, Pete, for our audience, can you quickly just explain the orange checkmark idea for Twitter? What would it accomplish?
You mean the blue checkmark or
no, the orange checkmark?
Whoa, you're gonna have to explain it to me.
Oh, okay. Well, simply put, it would essentially eliminate all these like spam bots, and you would have to pay like a fee of 1 sat for every time you wanted to reply on someone's post on social media. So the theory is that it could theoretically destroy all these spam bots. If you incorporated the same system into emails, for example, the way Jack Mallers has, you can essentially destroy spam emails.
Yeah.
So what I want to do,
I love that idea, by the way. I think it's super interesting because it creates an economic disincentive to sending out spam. The problem right now is that having spam bots on Twitter is free, basically.
Exactly.
And everywhere else.
I want to introduce that to our political sphere and have these fucking jackasses like Janet Yellen or, oh my God, Jerome Powell have to pay a fee, pay a fine, pay a toll for any of their economic takes. Because right now they can just say whatever the hell they want, talk out of their ass, and the economy moves as a result, but they're not held accountable for these claims they make, nor are they held accountable when the claims they make are disproven, are invalid. So
wait, but how would this work in the political sphere? Because like what would the medium that we would be policing be? Because I think it has to be by medium, not by industry or sector.
Clarify your question. Like, how would this work just for, in this example of Janet Yellen having to pay a toll?
Where would she pay it? What would she be paying it on? Like a toll is like every time you drive your car across some janky ass bridge.
So every time you make a news appearance, and it's scaled based on if you are appearing on national news or you appearing on local news, you have to pay out of your salary, and it's a percentage of your salary, so that it's no different if you're the head of the Treasury or the head of the Federal Reserve, or if you're a local level government official and you're going on a news broadcast making wild, outlandish claims. And then the kicker is, now that we have tied your salary to this claim, if your claim is upheld and you actually were like, I don't know, sounding an awesome alarm, help people make good, smart decisions that maybe saved them from economic despair, that is a selling point for your reelection. But if you claim that inflation was going to be transitory, if inflation doesn't really exist, if you're not looking at the price of food, meat, or oil, if you thought inflation was because of Putin, if you thought that there's not a recession, and that you were found wrong on all of these, at a certain point, I'm not saying it's like baseball and there's 3 strikes, but like after a consistent amount of bad or wrong takes, you should be viewed as someone who's honestly
Full of
just
shit.
carry and pick.
Okay, so here's the
Full,
thing. I love the idea of it. It's going to be impossible to enforce. This system, as you're talking about, is
totally.
going to be way overcomplicated. I love the root of it though, but I don't think there's not enough
Well,
of a toll road.
here's my largest issue, and I genuinely try to do my best to thread the needle, but I know
Also,
where the hole is
who
here.
arbitrates, who decides who is false and who is.
So that's where it just becomes a social credit scheme, and I recognize that is so dangerous and not something that I'm ever interested in doing. But I do think there is validity for public figures who are quote unquote public servants who are paid by taxpayer dollars to be held accountable by said taxpayers. So,
I mean, that's how
the question is, are we willing to hold these people? Exactly, but we don't hold them accountable. And so it's almost like we have to centralize this accountability. And in turn, by centralizing the accountability, it's who controls that, and they can dictate and just say like, oh, actually, like their take may have been wrong, but like I still agree with it, so therefore they're right. Like totally flaws in the system.
You got a lot of kinks to work out, man. I love the idea, but too much arbitration, too much. You gotta put it all on a blockchain, then we'll be good to go. I'm kidding, of course.
Just because I feel spicy and I was listening to so much of this yesterday, I'm going to continue my dunking on the Dems path. Quite possibly Satan and Satan's husband, the Pelosi's. I just want to really hammer home. If we didn't talk about this last week on the show, I know for sure I was talking about it on my Instagram. So a couple weeks ago, Paul Pelosi went out and bought a bunch of NVIDIA calls. But less than 24 hours later, this was not this past Friday, the Friday before, Nancy Pelosi comes out and makes very bullish comments around a new chip manufacturing bill. But it gets fucking worse. So mind you, pause for a moment. In less than 24 hours, Paul Pelosi's trade netted them $200,000, which is just under her actual salary for the year. Within a week, that trade made them over $600K, tripling her salary for the whole year. Why the fuck? People. Wait, but here's where it gets fucking spicy. Did you know that Nancy and Paul Pelosi had a fun little vacation planned last week? Did you know their fun little vacation was to go to Taiwan? And their fun little vacation was to visit different chip manufacturing hubs and companies and businesses. Why the fuck is the Secretary of State going off on this mission? Well, let me tell you, she's not, nor was she asked to. And the Biden administration had to legitimately call her and tell her to, I quote, stand down. As though
Jesus
what?
Christ.
Who the fuck put this senile old witch in charge of whether or not our chip foundries are going to be manufacturing enough chips? Why is that not a conversation happening on the House floor? Why is that not a conversation that is being made public? Well, I'll tell you why. Excuse me. Because Nancy and Paul Pelosi make a lot of fucking money trading on stocks that they know information about. Plain and simple. Like, that's it. You could lie about it. You could fudge it. You could laugh and scoff that your husband has never traded on information. I call you a fucking bat witch, Nancy Pelosi. You are so full of shit.
That's the most heated thing I've ever heard you say. It's the worst insult, calling somebody a bat witch. Yeah, I mean, look, it's insider trading to the max. It's totally horseshit. It happens everywhere, to be honest. But I mean, Nancy Pelosi has taken it in many cases to a high art. She's not unique in this regard. Like politicians and people in positions of power find ways to leverage that information, arbitrage it, and often unfairly. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it happens all the fucking time.
I will say this, like, I don't mean to dunk on the Dems. Like, I'll admit I am a Dem, I guess. Um, Kelly Loeffler, former Republican senator from Georgia, was doing the exact same stuff all during COVID, as was the other Georgia senator as well, both Republicans. So like, this is not a Dem issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is just a corrupt politician issue. And so we'll get into this in a second, but the fact that, insider trading is not even discussed at that level, that these politicians refuse to acknowledge the corruption that they are a part and continue to perpetuate, while then going after other people. And we'll dive into the Coinbase of it all. I want to talk about, the fact that a year ago, long before this show existed, long before you were all minding your P's and Q's, very quietly and very subtly, there was an investigation among Fed board members who were insider trading. And 3 board members, instead of opting in to have this investigation had on their trades and what they did, they opted to retire instead.
Yeah, because they're fucking assholes.
I only share this story because watch what happens when Nancy Pelosi steps away from the public eye and how it is sort of presented to us. What I genuinely envision is going to happen is she is going to be told, you can either step away, step down, and give up your power and reins. Otherwise, we'll prosecute you for your crimes. And she'll walk away from it to keep the millions and millions of dollars that the greatest trader of this decade, of the last 2 years, has ever known. So that's my little rant on that.
I mean, yeah, she's a piece of shit. I think that I wouldn't call her the greatest trader, but the thing that really drives me fucking crazy is the lies around what is happening, right? Everybody claims like, oh no, I'm a fine, upstanding citizen. I would never use insider trading. I would never use the information that I have available to me to my benefit. And of course, we all know that's totally bullshit. But yeah, it is fascinating that people like Pelosi, people like who we didn't talk about by name, but the other people you mentioned, they're able to perpetuate this behavior, continue to do it with the understanding that they will, 9 times out of 10 be able to get out of it just by making a deal. We see this all over the place. The corruption runs rampant. Bitcoin fixes this.
So I want to highlight, as we mentioned, there's some insider trading, quote unquote, that we all in the Bitcoin and broader crypto markets have known that Coinbase participates in and does very, very frequently. 3 of their employees are now getting caught up in this whole whirlwind. And, the very interesting thing of all of this, and we talked about it briefly last week, was just the idea that, or the fact that the SEC has now listed 9 of these tokens that are dinged in the insider trading claims as securities. What this can mean for the broader crypto market, I think it'll be very, very interesting. It's something to keep an eye on. Coinbase over the weekend was further cementing and digging their heels in the ground, saying, like, we do not participate in this. And yet Brian Armstrong sold off a bunch of ETH right before Coinbase listed ETH. Oh, and didn't they also used to have as an employee the founder of Litecoin, who then listed Litecoin on Coinbase? So like,
yeah, it's a I don't know what the right term is, but it's not a boiler room, but I mean, it's all bullshit. Is my conclusion.
It's
I really hope that
prophecy.
I really hope that they get called to task. I don't know if they will. I think it remains to be seen if people have gotten away with way more significant crimes in the financial industry. I'm not optimistic for them, for that is to say Coinbase ever having to actually deal with or acknowledge it, because they've just been doing it so long and there's so much money involved. But
what happens if some of these tokens do, by the eyes of the court of the law, become confirmed as securities? Like, will that end up changing how Coinbase has to approach their business model now? Because then you start to become more like a brokerage house than you do an exchange.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I actually don't know the answer. I mean, I can pontificate about it, but I'm not sure what ramifications. I mean, it would be very bad for them, but what the actual, knockdown effects would be, I don't know.
Definitely a story that we're going to be keeping an eye on as it continues to develop. So if you see anything Coinbase related online, uh, especially in terms of their SEC lawsuit, it is more than likely in reference to this. Coinbase is countersuing the SEC, so keep that in mind as well. Um, Not a lighter story, but just a story that honestly made me chuckle at the fucking cojones of these assholes. But 3AC co-founders, after being just MIA for weeks, have finally resurfaced last week. And they resurfaced because they are trying to buy, and I quote, the biggest yacht in Singapore with what is assumed to be uh, assets that were supposed to be under management that are supposed to have been liquidated. What the fuck? Like, honestly, I'm not going to say I'm impressed, but like, to just have the gumption to know that you are being searched for and to just, I mean, look, you're just trying to use maritime law and go out into sea, and what I believe it's after 7 miles of when you go out to sea, you are now in international waters, and therefore, like, you might as well be a fucking pirate at that point. Like, slap some cannons on the side of your yacht, and you're just sailing away to, I don't know, the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, man, it's fucked up. Um, I also saw there was like an interview that Do Kwon did recently where he was like, "Yeah, I've been quiet because I've been getting death threats," and it was just all platitudes. He was like, "I really thought we could do well. We did great in the good times, and then just no one in the entire industry was expecting the bad times." And there were people on Twitter, just apologists, being like, "Man, he's really taking responsibility for his fuck up." And I was like, "What the actual fuck?" Like, obviously that is exactly what he's going to say. His entire strategy is portray him. I mean, it's like a textbook, mea culpa, and who the fuck knows, man? But I think he will get away with it. I think. I don't. I feel super optimistic around Bitcoin and the societal changes that it will drive. But around these specific things, as they continue to happen, we're just going to see it again and again. It's the way it goes.
Just
Money talks, baby.
I think it's really important though for people to like really recognize some of the phrasings or just words being used by these con artists so that when the next iterations of these people arrive, and it's not going to be Do Kwon again, although I truly cannot believe Luna 2.0 got launched and some people actually legitimately thought it was going to work. Like, you deserve to lose your money at that point. You just do. But there will be others. It won't be Do Kwon. It'll be someone else in his stead doing something similar. Not the exact same. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And it's important for us to sort of understand what these characters' motivations are and what they say and how they present so that we can more easily and quickly call it out. For those of us who are newer into the Bitcoin space, we had the good fortune of having, some of these maxis who have been in Bitcoin for much longer, who have gone through cycles of seeing scammers and con artists like this, and were more quickly able to discern and call them out. And now it's on us to learn those things so that for the next class of Bitcoiners, we too can call out the scammers so that they don't get caught up in that. So that's why I will forever and continuously on this show and to his face, if I ever get the chance to meet him, call out Gary Vee for being a grifter of all grifters and trust fund baby. So go ahead, buy his NFTs, but all he's doing is trying to make a quick buck off of you.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do to get, you're absolutely right, of course, but all you got to do is go look at fucking whatever it was, Gary V Friends. I mean, he literally just drew like the shittiest drawings of animals you could ever possibly imagine on like napkins or some shit, and then put it on OpenSea, and people were just piling in. Now, I think people also got to take responsibility for their own actions. Like, everybody who, the majority of people who were participating in OpenSea, they were doing so because they thought that they'd figured it out, that they were going to get rich. And so, uh, yeah, you got to hold yourself accountable for making stupid decisions, play stupid games, win stupid prizes every fucking time. I want to shift slightly. And yesterday, there was a Twitter data breach that exposed the contact details for 5.4 million accounts, and it was on sale for only $30,000. So it had Twitter usernames, emails, and phone numbers, and it was apparently disclosed in January and patched, but this is just now kind of bubbling up. I thought that was fascinating. I mean, again, anytime you have centralized information, it creates a honeypot that people are more and more strongly incentivized to attack and get access to. And the level of, unlike Bitcoin, where the security that is provided by miners, that scales up and down with the difficulty adjustment, and up with the price of Bitcoin in fiat terms anyway. These systems don't do that. So the security systems that were built for a much smaller product, and I don't know if this is the case with Twitter specifically, but often you just have these decrepit old systems in place that people won't actually fix or put money into fixing, or doing security audits, improving things further, any more than they have to, until they get hacked and fucked over. And then the systems go in place. It's always retroactive improvements. But we should all just expect and understand that anytime you are giving your private information to a centralized entity, you are at serious risk for it getting eventually hacked and put on the dark web, and everyone will have access to it. The number of times I've gotten notifications for like, oh shit, we're so sorry, your personal data was breached, and now you might or may not be totally screwed. I mean, it's got to be at least a dozen times, and half a dozen of those were very significant. Like social security numbers and shit. It's just the way the world works.
I fucking hate entering anything more than what is bare bones necessary. But
well, I mean, it goes back to why people tend to argue when they're talking about the idea of KYC and AML. They'll say like, oh, but it prevents terrorism. It's really important for preventing illicit money use. The reality is, there are very thorough analyses that have shown that AML and KYC laws do not have that effect. What ends up happening again and again and again is that these systems become honeypots, as I was just saying, and then they get hacked, and then this data gets released into the wild. So what you actually do when you are requiring, know your customer type of information to be collected, is you damage the future, I don't know what the right word is, but like sanctity of the people's data that you're collecting. And it is so disappointing to see people just ape into those narratives around like, we've got to prevent terrorism. We have to, implement, crazy intense gun control laws around specific types of weapons that you can just look at the data, and like assault rifles are not the types of weapons that the vast majority of crimes or homicides are committed with when it comes to guns. But those are the things that are being blocked, and people are rallying against because they look bad and people are scared of them. And you just see this over and over and over and over again. And I just wish that our legislative process was more anchored in data and reality rather than narratives. That's never going to happen, but it fucking kills me every time this stuff comes up.
Perfectly said. To make it all, bring it back to Bitcoin of it, I want to highlight the fact that, we're seeing a lot of reports from on-chain analysts about hash ribbon. We had a conversation last week while Joe Consorti's internet was working, explaining that. So if you want, feel free to check out that link to the shorter video version of Joe explaining what hash ribbons are. I just want to point out, though, that during this time, we're supposed to be seeing a lot of miner capitulation. Last week, we saw difficulty adjust down by 5%, and this is the largest drop since the China mining ban. To me, with my limited understanding of the technicalities of Bitcoin, this reads like, oh, miners are getting shut off, difficulty has to decrease, and so therefore we are sort of seeing that miner capitulation that we've been reading about for some time. Is that a right way to absorb the fact that difficulty has decreased, that miners are shutting off older rigs and we are potentially seeing that capitulation, or is there something else?
I am so sorry. I was chatting with our guests that are coming on in just a second, so I didn't hear anything you said because you said it boringly, and it's your fault. I blame you.
Hey man, I'm just trying to talk about on-chain analysis.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Difficulty went down 5%. Difficulty went down 5% last week. Is this the minor capitulation? Is this a sign of that capitulation, or is there other signs to be looking out for?
Oof. I mean, I suspect that is certainly a very large part of it. It seems like that would make sense to me. Yeah, I don't know enough information to be able to. I don't feel comfortable saying like, yes, 100%, this is capitulation. But that seems like a rational explanation for it.
Cool. Love it. I'm going to just remind everyone now, ticket prices for Bitcoin Amsterdam have gone up. The promo code BM Live should be active, though. If it's not, shoot us a DM and we'll make sure they turn that on. Get 10% off of your Bitcoin Amsterdam code using the promo code. We'd love to see you there. Come party with us at the biggest Bitcoin conference in all of Europe.
Yeah, man. It's true. It's going to be fucking awesome. We're going to be there. Don't miss the time of your life.
Shall we cut to a commercial and bring back the dynamic duo of Junseth and HODL?
I think we should go for a little bit longer. They're not quite ready yet. And as soon as they jump in, we can do it.
Is Junseth putting on pants?
No. I talked to him. He said he absolutely was not going to put on pants. I argued with him about it, and he was really aggressive. He hit me through the internet, and it was very, very painful. Yeah, that's the situation. That's the world we live in right now. Let's go to commercial.
Okay.
We'll be back very shortly with American HODL and Junseth. Get ready.
Oh, hey.
We are back.
What happened?
Well, look, HODL was here, then he left. He had to go take off his pants. Now he's back.
The HODL. How did you think I wasn't here? Is that what?
No, we're good.
I'm in my homeless gear today.
I know. You got a torn shirt. Oh, yeah. Show it all. Show all of it to us.
Pajamas.
I like that you're in front of a green screen and then there's no background. It's glorious.
Well, I knew I wanted you to be able to insert things or have the audience insert things. Like, here's me running. Okay. I'm running from a T-Rex or whatever you want to put back there. It's totally fine.
It's fucking beautiful. I can see it in my mind's eye, though not on the screen because we don't have that capacity.
HODL, bye.
HODL just jumped out again to take off yet another layer. Not only is he not going to be wearing pants when he comes back, he will not be wearing underwear. HODL, my man. You keep dipping out and then jumping back in. What's going on? Why do you hate America?
Yo, fucked up, bro. That's my bad.
It's all right. It's all right. I want you both to introduce yourselves. We've had you both on before. You are both bear, sideways, and bull market legends. Junseth, why don't you go first and tell us about the time that you took a shit while recording a podcast?
Hey, my name's Junseth. I'm the inventor of graphene, as well as the gramophone. I've been alive for many years. I have been in Bitcoin for a while. I ran a podcast with my co-host Grifter Rose called Bitcoin Uncensored many years ago, and it was basically just us announcing what was going on in Bitcoin while being toxic men.
Perfect.
I
American
honestly would I do what I hope that someday, when the toxic masculinity, when people are trying to find its source, I hope that it is me they finger, especially if they're hot men.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to hope for. You said toxic masculinity. Did you mean toxic maximalism, or are you focused specifically on your testosterone
Whatever.
levels?
I don't even know what the thing is called nowadays. I guess maximalism, but I think that is entwined with masculinity. You know,
it's called boofing now. Is the term that's used?
Is
for
it
children.
boofing?
Okay. That's where you take drugs rectally in your butt.
Oh, well,
that's what
I've done that before.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't, right? HODL, tell the people who you are and why they shouldn't listen to you.
So, my name's American HODL. I'm a Litecoin promoter and Litecoin enthusiast. Several years ago, I was at a petting zoo and I was ran. I fell backwards, tripped over a curb, hit my head, suffered traumatic brain
Fell
injury.
into a monkey.
After a long rehab where I lost 35% of my brain's function, I discovered my life's mission. So.
That's fantastic. Unfortunately, we only heard like every third word because your internet is apparently trash. Is there anything you can do to repair?
Son of a bitch!
Yeah, there's lag. It's cutting in and out. What I heard was
that lag was honestly incredible.
You have bear market internet, man.
Yeah, it's jacked.
Because you're poor. You got the cheap internet because you're poor.
Yeah, see, Junseth at least sold his Bitcoin at the top. He timed it perfectly.
I did. I am the Jeremy Gardner of Bitcoin.
Were you going to say the Jeremy Gardner of Jeremy Gardner?
Well, I did, but then I thought, the Jeremy Gardner of Bitcoin is funny too because he's also in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like he's the Jeremy Gardner of Bitcoin. HODL's just frozen now with that stupid face.
But you can't quite tell. It's like frozen at just. There's another HODL that's joining us. We've got multiple HODLs. Get fucking ready.
HODL, do you see yourself? Do you see yourself over in the other?
He's
using his phone.
I only see on the other.
This isn't better. This isn't better.
It's not bad.
This is so much worse. No, you're fucking worse.
Let me show you what it's like, HODL. It's like this. I'm HODL. How you doing?
All right. Well, look, HODL's he's figuring out his shit. Maybe he's taking off his shirt.
My internet's not working.
That's what he said. He's messaging me saying exactly that right now in the same voice somehow. While we wait for him to strangle the life out of his internet technician, Junseth, what have you been up to these days? What's going on? Who have you insulted specifically?
Oh, I ain't done much. Lately, in bear markets, it's always like Bitcoin purgatory around here. But don't do that. Don't make
it's too late. It's done.
I want to be with other people.
Fine.
I'm just doing a monologue. I don't want a monologue. I suck at those. Not much. I'm doing my life, golfing a lot, masturbating when I can find a second, going to Nazi rallies whenever they crop up locally. But other than that, really nothing. You?
Man, honestly, just Bitcoin shit. This show with Q, super fun. I'm in a different location, as you can tell from the lack of anything. I'm just floating in the void, like I'm trapped in the. You do
have a nice back. Last time I feel like your background was a little different.
It was. There was more shit.
Can I do something with this? Is that possible? Do I get to can I put something back there?
You can actually. If you go into settings and then go to virtual background, and you can just do whatever the fuck you want, my friend.
I can take any picture I want. Oh, great.
Don't do something that we will regret. We are streaming live. Please do not put anything that's like, that will get us banned off of YouTube. I'm trusting you, Junseth.
Look, if we can get away with that god awful image of Augustus eating Christine Lagarde's toes with Janet Yellen as her second head, Junseth could literally do anything he wanted.
Careful. I mean, first of all,
you don't want that, Q. You don't want that.
No, I'm releasing the wild card.
No, Jesus, don't do
Maybe
that.
I'll put something
restrain yourself, sir.
I'll put something educational back here. Trust me.
Oh, now I'm excited. Now I'm really excited. It's going to be like the human excrement scale. Like the one is like runny diarrhea.
I hadn't thought about it yet. I was just saying I was going to do that, but I'll have to think about something now. You've set the expectations too high for me, P.
Well, hey, that's what I'm here for. HODL, are you back with us? Can you see us, hear us, communicate?
What?
Yes, you hear me.
Yeah, see?
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Fuck you.
What?
You did. Let me do the impression again. HODL was like this. Yes, you can hear me.
Jesus Christ. All right, stick around.
I think he's actually...
now
he's trolling you.
You son of a bitch.
Now he's trolling you, see?
We'll deal with the lag as long as we can actually hear you. And oh God, he froze again. All right. Well, HODL will be jumping in and out while he masturbates furiously at the same time.
I just want to know why HODL, like what prompted HODL, maybe I missed this from our last conversation, to change from American HODL. Like, why does he hate America now?
Oh,
well, I think he just shortened it, just shortened the brand, so it's a little easier to remember.
Yeah, I can't.
Are we talking about anything today, or is it just like shoot the shit hour? I mean, I don't care.
There was a legitimate quiz that I have prepared for both of you.
Oh, no.
So let's do it. It's also just shoot the shit hour. But I wanted to talk more about the title of this is currently Slayer Bitcoin Heroes. We talked about it last time, but there's just a lot of bullshit going on in the space. I feel like this bear market is a little bit different than previous bear markets. It feels different. I think that's probably just because there's more adoption, but I wanted to talk about that. But before we do that, HODL is back again with a terrible connection. Q, you want to take us through your quiz? And if it's like, are you a Virgo? I'm going to kill you.
Well, no, but I was going to ask what your rising moon was, but all right, fine.
That means, so that's great. I can't answer that one. What happens if I win this? What do I get? A Bitcoin?
You have to send me a Bitcoin and then I send you two.
No, you'll get a Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is spelled with 2 T's.
Litecoin fixes this. I'm gonna start saying that from now on, HODL.
So I wanna go back in time if you'll entertain me. And let's go to February of 2021. And I want to go back to the day that Tesla actually announced that they had bought Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Did you give a flying fuck, and why did you not care?
Oh, is this one of the quiz questions? Because I can't get that wrong.
No.
I didn't give a flying fuck.
Exactly. But like what? Like why? What about your time in Bitcoin had taught you to not care that Tesla aped into Bitcoin? Because there were a lot of newbies who were like, this is it. This is the beginning of that adoption.
Yeah. So I've learned, I mean, I think that people who weren't here early don't understand sort of the news cycle of Bitcoin. There's a scalability to news. And when Bitcoin was young, the things that we were excited about were like, like dude in Kenosha, Wisconsin just started accepting Bitcoin. It's going to 1 million. It would be like the Reuters newspaper, Reuters or something like that, because he'd like do an announcement, or some obscure construction company did a project and took Bitcoin. We're going to 1 million. And every week it was like some new announcement. And then the announcements just got bigger and bigger. And now it's like corporation also, like whatever, like Bitcoin's so big now. All of these things are drops in the bucket. They always were drops in the bucket. They were just always small examples of things that Bitcoin could do. And Tesla should be a drop in the bucket. It's going to be a drop in the bucket. It is. And if they've sold all their Bitcoin, then haha, like the market absorbed it. And it truly was a drop in the bucket. Thank you for your money, Elon. What's the next quiz question? This is a terrible quiz.
That's awful.
No. Hey, personal choice, baby. So then why?
I'm convinced Q's a lesbian.
What?
And I didn't even think they existed, lesbians.
I'm not gonna touch that.
What?
Just not. So then why did people care as much as they did last week? Why was there this uproar that, oh, Tesla has let his hands, Tesla selling, Elon Musk is a little bitch? Why then, on the opposite side of it, did there need to be this sort of cry about the capitulation?
Well, I mean, it's funny. Bitcoiners, when Tesla started buying Bitcoin, were praising Elon and talking about how great he was and how wonderful he was, and how just he was the best thing for Bitcoin. And I remember then, HODL will remember because he was with me, and he said it too. We were saying, you guys are morons. This dude is just a dude. He's gonna like abandon Bitcoin as fast as he got here. There's nothing interesting about this. And that proved correct. So the thing that happens in Bitcoin is when someone exits Bitcoin, there's a lot of Schadenfreude, but there's also a lack of remembrance that you were completely on their side when they did it. You were excited about it. It would be like if Michael Saylor suddenly like converted to Litecoin or started shitcoining. Everyone in Bitcoin would be like, we always knew he was bad. And be like, you guys, none of you did. Not one of you thought he was bad. You were all talking about how great he was. So there's an inability to remember history, and there's a love of Schadenfreude. And honestly, I mean, the Schadenfreude part I revel in. The turning people into oracles, I think, is insanely stupid, and we do it again and again and again. And I don't know if it's an error of the noobs, or if it's just that people always forget that last week they had a different hero and they pick a new hero this week. It's just interesting to me that I see the same mistake again and again and again and again, and nobody learns from it. I feel like I'm the only one in Bitcoin capable of like retaining a lesson.
I want to unpack that, but before we do, for all of the other audience members who don't speak German, can you describe or explain what Schadenfreude, which I can't even fucking pronounce, is?
Warst du einst mit allgemeiner Nazi?
Schadenfreude is. Can you guys hear me now? You can hear me?
Yeah, with the live, but we'll accept it.
I'll have you know that was Brahms, by the way.
Schadenfreude is just taking pain or taking pleasure in other people's misery. That's all it is.
Thank you, HODL. Junseth, to your point, I don't feel like this is a Bitcoin issue. I feel like you could replace the main topic and the thing that people like from Bitcoin to literally anything. And that's just a human issue, that we have this like short-term memory bias where we're quick to forget things that we don't align with our beliefs or don't continue to build off of them. And then we're quick to align with sort of the new light or the new thing.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're doing penile implant surgeries, I'm sure that there's a hero of your industry, and you're gonna like every time you go to a conference fawn over that hero. And like I get it. Like every industry has like their heroes, and this is my joke early on in Bitcoin is I'm very famous amongst a tiny group of people, and that's how most industries are. Like, you'll enter, I don't know, marketing, anything, your first job, you'll see it, and all of a sudden you'll be hearing about like, have you seen like John Martin's stuff? Oh my god, he's a genius. And you realize that like maybe 35 people really know who John Martin is, and they follow him and they love him, and then he at some point betrays them, makes a bad joke, gets canceled, whatever the hell it is, and all of a sudden all 35 people hate him. But that's the thing. Like, oracles make no sense. Oracles are very dumb. There are people you can learn from that know more than you. You should soak up their information, but the information is information, and them conveying it is not that interesting. Like, who's conveying the information is not that interesting, right? And I think about, one of my favorite things to, like, we're talking about killing your heroes. I love reading histories of these people that we think are just incredible. Isaac Newton's a good example, and Isaac Newton, before he was 30, had developed calculus, or early 30s at the very least, developed calculus. He'd come up with all, this incredible way to find pi, et cetera, et cetera. Then basically didn't do anything, never fucked the chick, Sort of like
He also
QQ,
8 children.
actually.
Enough.
Yeah, 8 children.
These are facts.
He and then like later on in his life, he becomes like the head of the Bank of England, and he basically chases counterfeiters because he has like a bloodthirsty desire to murder them. And he like finds the biggest murder or counterfeiter in the UK. He invents this little thing like the ridges on coins, and he does his stuff throughout his life. And then the South Sea, it's to prevent clipping.
Can't other people just?
It's really obvious when you like realize it's to prevent clipping.
The outside is smooth; it's been clipped. The ridges are for clipping. Yeah.
So there was a perpetual motion. There was a perpetual motion machine of money in England because they were literally making their money out of gold, right? So, oh my God, no, P, put everyone else back.
God damn.
No.
Spotlight zeroes in, and you.
So there was a perpetual motion of money thing going on where basically you could clip gold in England. There was a sort of like stated price that it was, and then France had a floating point. So people would clip coins, they'd put them in bags, they'd put them on ships, they'd sell them in France for the actual amount of the value of the gold, and then they would take that money and then buy more coins. And this was like the debasement of the currency in the UK. But anyhow, so Newton does all this stuff. He's just an incredible person who will be remembered for all time. And then he plays in like he participates in alchemy, and he gives all of his money away in the South Sea bubble. Like, he's an idiot. Just like every other fucking person. And he happened to do some pretty cool things before he was 30. Kind of like, probably very inadvisable things, actually. I'll bet that's why like no one else had done it. He was I don't know, getting syphilis and banging chicks or something like that, and came up with like this new way for pi based on like the circumference of a penis. I don't know. But just he was, when he was young, he was doing some interesting things. Then he basically didn't do anything, and then he gave all his money away. He's just like everybody else.
Wait, is the conclusion there that everybody is a piece of shit ultimately? Or
the conclusion? No. The conclusion is that like the ideas are the only things that matter, and sometimes dumb people have good ideas. And like just because they have good ideas occasionally, just because dumb people have good ideas, doesn't mean you make a statue of them. Doesn't mean that their next idea is good. Occasionally, retards like hit on things. They'll be like, maybe light has weight, and you'll be like, that's stupid. And then like you discover that photons have like this alternate property, like, wow, he was a genius, or maybe he was just saying shit. I don't know. But I think it doesn't make him less retarded.
Wait, hang on. I want to unpack this because I've said some things right, and I also can qualify as a retard. So like, how many times you have to say something
and a lesbian,
and I am a closet lesbian. How many things do you have to get right to no longer be considered a retard?
Just
you are rule number 1 and rule number 2, my friend. I'm an idiot and you're an idiot. Well, first it's you're an idiot, and then rule 2 is I'm an idiot. And if you understand that there's nothing you can do to not be an idiot, and there's nothing anyone else can do to not be idiots, you'll have a much better life. You'll wear high-end shirts such as this.
Can you rip that just a little bit more?
Sure.
HODL, you were going to say something.
It's pretty much down on my belly button.
It's hot. HODL is just floating in space. He can only understand like every third word.
I stopped talking when HODL freezes.
I said you got interrupted by one of the three of us. You were going to say something and jump in, and then we just kept talking over you. I wanted to hear what you were going to say.
Internet must really suck dicks. All right, listen. Just buy Litecoin since I'm very
God fucking damn it.
Sure. God damn it. It's still that bad.
Yeah, it's awful. You can just be there and just
all I heard was buy Litecoin, which is solid advice.
Jesus, do not buy Litecoin. Do not go out and buy Litecoin. But Bitcoin with 2 T's. There we go. Interesting. I think the other thing that one can conclude from stories like that is that everybody fucks up pretty much all the time. And I really hate that we are taught that there's these figures throughout history that need to be deified. And it sort of creates this idea that like, oh, no one, like you couldn't possibly do something interesting. The reality is those people were fucking idiots just like you.
I want to point to someone in the chat. Diogenes the Great says Junseth's takes are always, he spells always ALLWAYS, so we can conclude some things about him. But he says always hot trash. Diogenes, that's the ticket. Take that to the bank. Think like that, you'll do great.
Good job, Diogenes.
Yeah, like it's just, I mean, you shouldn't have heroes. Oracles are dumb. The only things I say that are of any interest are jokes, and even those are bad.
HODL, are you with us again?
Is this any better?
Not really, but
No.
say your thing. Talk at us. Hit us with it.
Yeah. All right, I'll be back.
Good God. Junseth, what?
That's why I always do two guests, because like one of them might have terrible internet.
Yeah, there you go.
Honestly, after this, we're gonna just always default to booking two guests and let the guests duke it out to see who stays on.
So, Junseth, I'm curious, how do you interact in your personal life with the people around you? Are you as irascible in your everyday life as you are in terms of your persona? I think the answer is 100%, but
It's a scale. It depends if I want them to be friends or not. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it depends on the interaction. Like I think to be this irascible and also liked in some corners of the internet, one has to have a little bit of emotional self-awareness. So I'm pretty good at gauging a room. And I don't know. I mean, like I've been utterly irascible in plenty of other places, but for the most part, I'm in it for the laugh. Bitcoin's interesting for me because like there's just a lot of lies and misinformation, and I find that the quickest way to cut through it is just to insult those who should know better. I think that's a really important part of it. Is if you should know better, then you're game for the insults. You get to be the joke, the butt of it.
So before you jumped in, we were talking about, the insanity with the 3AC founders. They surfaced in wherever the fuck they surfaced because they're trying to buy a yacht, presumably or potentially with stolen funds. We were talking about
why can't people buy a Toyota with stolen? Why is it a yacht? Why can't they be like, I'm gonna buy a Toyota Corolla?
Well, because they literally want to go to international waters. Well, they want to not be extradited.
If you have that much money, you can turn a Toyota Corolla into a boat too.
That's a great fucking point. Just slap a little float on it, and you're good to go.
How's that for a take, Diogenes?
It's rock solid. So, but I'm curious whether you think that we will ever live in a world where, Nancy Pelosi, insider trading, 3AC founders, scorched earth, fucking everybody over, and then going and buying yachts, things like that. Do you think that we will ever exist in a world where that does not happen, or
no?
Do you think that there we go?
No, I mean, corruption is corruption, and like,
bingo.
This is the thing. I like, yeah, it's profound, right? Right. P, corruption is corruption. A is a. It's that there. I think what Bitcoin has revealed to a lot of people who had faith in humanity is that there are people who are not worth your faith, right? There's a lot of people in the world who are just literally, they wake up in the morning and they're willing to run a scam. And it's a surprisingly large number of people. And even more than that, it's a surprisingly large number of people who put on suits and will tell you that they're like Mr. Credible. And in fact, have enough clients in history to prove their credibility. I mean, there are people who you look at, think are highly credible. They're CEOs of some company, and then they'll go run like a pyramid scheme. Like it's super common for people to have no awareness of the thing that they're in. I know Bitcoiners who went to Harvard Business School who can't get their minds around how markets are efficient, something that I think is a very fundamental thing to believe in.
Wait, sorry, what is HODL doing right now?
I think he's trying to find better internet. He's stealing from his neighbor. He's getting as close to the wall as possible.
It's just like his just gigantic chandelier.
HODL's moved to the Ritz-Carlton.
He's using his neighbor's emergency key that was given to him just like in case that he had to go and let their dogs out or feed their cats. Now he's just using their internet sitting in the master bedroom.
I'm looking at the chat's
Can you
hilarious.
hear
People are
me?
saying that HODL.
You have
Yeah.
such
Well,
a
your mouth
laugh.
isn't moving. People in the chat are literally saying that HODL's love of Litecoin is a ruse. That's ridiculous. HODL loves Litecoin. He's been buying Litecoin since the beginning. Since it was a silver to Bitcoin's gold.
We do need to
Future.
clarify. We should clarify that we only invite HODL, the Litecoin Maxi, on here to have a balance of opinions on this show. So
right.
that's the only reason he's given any credibility whatsoever.
I don't know if anyone can hear me or not, but if you can hear me, Litecoin. I hope
Litecoin is
Honestly,
the right coin.
Wait, Brian Miller, you are fucking hilarious
Here's
for
the
that
thing. Can
one,
I
and
just
we're all
explain
burning in hell.
Litecoin maximalism to you guys real quick? Okay, here's the thing.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Wait, but Pete, can you just mute him while he does this?
Have you checked the price of Litecoin? That's boom, soaring. Like it's just, I don't like it's.
Litecoiners literally can't afford good internet. That's the issue.
But besides all the Litecoin shilling going on here, I want to drop P's attention to this, that Greg Zaj, we see you in the comments, we see you in P's DMs, and we will never respond to you.
You just did.
By the way, if this internet ruse is just Junseth trolling me, it's amazing.
What the fuck?
We've got a replacement for you, HODL.
Why have this stream? What's Greg doing?
Look, we couldn't rely
I said
on
his
you to
name and he
show up.
appeared.
We couldn't rely on you to show up. Greg Zaj, leader of the Meme Factory, shitposter extraordinaire. Welcome to Bitcoin Magazine Live.
He can't hear you. He can't hear you.
Yeah, it's cool. He'll just sit there and, if you want to chime in, it'll be great. Glad to have you, as always. And, if you could just look a little bit more like HODL, that would be great. And we can just pretend that you're him. Oh, he's gone. Fuck. Well, look, we never shut anyone down. We want to hear all voices unless you're a fucking idiot, and then we'll gulag you.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here, guys?
Listen, all right. Here's the thing, man. Litecoin is currency. Okay. And that means that you can't toxic in order to bring about Litecoin into global prominence. Like if you have for Litecoin to rise in value, that's worth it. Their sacrifice is worth it. You know what I mean? See? That's what I'm saying. That's what they sound like when you stab them for Litecoin dominance. For Litecoin, and if you're not, you're a bad person.
Jesus Christ! It just.
That's all I'm saying.
All right, no more. I'm cutting you off.
HODL, I say with nothing but respect, but like spend the extra $10 a month on internet with a higher bandwidth.
Internet is so good. It's so good.
Oh, Junseth, what we got?
Oh, who's this?
This is Margaret Sanger, hero of mine, founder of Planned Parenthood, and the biggest. She's killed more black babies than anyone in the history of America, which is, I think, honestly, a net benefit. So let's we can. What?
I mean, how do you feel as like a half black man? Like, how does that work? How do you have her as your hero?
Well, I wasn't killed, so I'm fine. My genes can move on to propagate, but I'm glad she gives the dumb black guys and ladies the option to murder their babies. So this is, well, I mean, not anymore.
Are you calling you stupid on my own
P,
show?
I'm not saying you are Jewish. You have different problems. Let me put up a picture of the person who dealt with you guys.
Don't you fucking dare. You're going to get us banned like that. Don't you do it, Junseth.
Joseph, I love you, bro, but it's only Monday. Like, can I ease into the week a little bit more?
These are tame jokes.
They're solid. All right, where do we go from here?
I want to talk politics.
Where do we go from here?
Hit a cue. Ask a dumb political question.
So, like, why do we give a flying fuck about any politician who says anything about Bitcoin, whether it's good or bad? Like, why should we care that Senator Lummis is pushing forward a bill that of course, nobody in the Senate gives a fuck who Senator Lummis is, and then the bill doesn't get pushed forward, and now it'll get voted on next year, is what they'll tell us for the next decade. At the same vein, like, why do we care that Elizabeth Warren says anything negative about it? Why do we care that Ted Cruz says anything
here's
positive
the
about
thing, like if you're convicted about Bitcoin, if you really think Bitcoin is gonna, like, I don't know, go up, isn't it nice to have it low for as long as possible? This is like the thing. Like I argue with old people all the time that are into Bitcoin. They're like, I'm 60 and I'm into Bitcoin, and all they want is for it to go up. So these things are like things they're desperate to have happen. They want it quickly regulated. They want it, like, kind of mainstreamed. They want all these things, and Bitcoin is not an old guy's game. It's a game for people that can take on the asymmetric risk that is Bitcoin. And if you're old, buy bonds and, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. Like, that's what I say. And if you're young, you can play the game and hold it for a long time, but don't buy so much that you can't live. HODL's 100% in Bitcoin. That's why he can't afford internet.
We joke, but like, you're actually serious.
Yeah, I'm quasi serious. I'm not serious about HODL. HODL doesn't have any Bitcoin, but he's full on Litecoin. But other than that, like, it's just, you should buy as much as you're able to hold on to, and not more, because Bitcoin's highly volatile and it is an asymmetric bet. So it's a good bet for young people, in my opinion, and it's a bad bet for old people. And old people are going to have a lot of trouble with the fact that young people want it to remain low as long as possible. So I don't care. It's something he's talking about, Tina. Well, Tina falls into this category, but it's not really just specifically Tina. It's people. Most people who fall into that category. I mean, people can do whatever they want with their investments. If they're old and they fall outside of the category of that group, like, there's exceptions, right? Look at magic fingers.
They look especially magic because of the green screen.
Yeah. There's people that fall outside of that category, and those people, they can do what they want. But I'm just saying, for the general advice, like, if you're old, my dad keeps telling me he wants to get into Bitcoin. I'm like, Dad, you're on a fixed income. Don't be stupid. It's not a good idea for him to do it. It's an asymmetric bet, and he can't afford to take it. That's really what it comes down to.
Interesting. I remember in Clubhouse, like, when we were, heading up, flirting with, 69, that you were like one of the only voices who, when people would, come in and they'd be like, oh, basically what you just said, they'd be like, I'm, whether or not they're on a fixed income or they were older, you were kind of the lone voice of, in retrospect, reason, advocating for people to have a balanced portfolio, to, bury some of their gold in the backyard, all that shit, in order to weather the storm more effectively.
Yeah, I think that people, I'm always right about this stuff because I have a very simple thesis. I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I've never been wrong in my predictions about Bitcoin, because my friend was saying Bitcoin's going to go up to 100,000. And I said, then it might go up to 100,000, but it also might not. And you have to prepare for the possibility that it might do either.
Fuck you.
So the thing is, like, there are no guarantees. There's no promise that Bitcoin is going to go up, and you aren't guaranteed anything. So, like, you have to live your life as if you don't know who, when or what Bitcoin's going to do.
I am terrified to ask who this is.
Oh, this is a.
Oh,
I see your eyes moving. So
I was expecting you to speak. I thought you were going to speak over me, but you didn't.
You said hold it. It's not anyone. This is not anyone controversial. P. This is Cardinal Ratzinger, also known as Pope Benedict, in his uniform for the Hitler Youth. So
there it is.
What? This is a good man right here. This was the Pope of the Catholic Church. Right here.
It's
future
true.
Pope.
It's true.
So
fair enough. Continue, Q. You were going to ask a question before I so rudely interrupted Junseth to tell him to hold on the image, and then we just sat there awkwardly for 5 minutes. Please continue.
So, like, are gold bugs who are now trying to get involved. Oh, we lost him.
No,
He's
I'm
back.
here. I'm here.
I just
I
turned
never
his camera
left.
off as
P just
I
kicked you
felt
off.
like it.
Okay, got it.
He wanted to
By the way,
censor the image.
By the way, P,
It worked.
you are now HODL level of lag.
All right.
Talk
amongst yourselves. I'll figure it out.
John. So, like, is Lawrence Lepard or any of these gold bugs who have now got involved in Bitcoin? Are you saying that like they're too old, don't come into this space, or I'm just trying to figure out what I need to go tell my dad about how wrong I was for him to ape into Bitcoin right now.
Well, you'll know in retrospect whether he was wrong or right. And it's different. Like if you have $100 million and you put in $1 million, you're probably fine, right? But if you have $1 million and you put in 100,000, that's a lot of your wealth. That's a lot of your wealth. And not only that, the psychology of Bitcoin is such that if you are not a person who maybe has a trading system or something like that, that you can actually follow and you're very maybe emotional, then you're going to have a lot of trouble not losing even more than the 100,000 that you have put into Bitcoin, because you're going to want to, I mean, I don't know why. I don't understand why the psychology of the market causes people to do this, but there's a literal impetus to buy high and sell low. And I don't know why the market does that. And people think they're winning as they do it. And I see it all the time. Buy high, sell low, buy high, sell low. And as the market goes up, they're bullish. And then as it goes down, they're like, fuck, I got to sell. And then it goes back up and then they missed out. And I see this all the time. Buy high, sell low is what the psychology is going to tell you. So if you don't have a system, if you're not a trader, you're just an old dude who's never really traded stocks, you can't weather this. It's ridiculous.
HODL, you're back.
No,
There's still lag, but you look gorgeous.
You're also muted.
Are you muted? Yeah, I think you're muted. How am I? Or how are my levels? People in the audience, am I choppy? Do I sound like HODL?
No,
we can at least hear you.
Never sounded like HODL, yeah.
You just
don't look like HODL.
No, you can't be that handsome. There's still no volume coming from HODL.
Yeah, sorry, bro.
At this point, I'm starting to be convinced he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, he's got to be fucking with us because his picture looks crisp as shit.
Fucking with us. I can see that little shitty grin right now on his face too.
Well, we'll just keep you there. You can go jump over to YouTube, be live, and then jump over to YouTube and just comment in the chat while we get to see your glorious face. He's so excited to be on this call. He just can't.
P is just trying to artificially pump up the viewership numbers right now. In case you guys were wondering,
viewers are a shitcoin. All right. Where do we go from here? Junseth.
Yeah.
What is your astrological sign?
I have no idea.
Oh, this is good.
This is my favorite background so far.
This is Hillary Clinton, a woman that I revere. Have revered her since the early 90s, when she was one of the greatest cattle futures traders in the history of humanity.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, tell me about that. I had no idea.
Well, there was one year where Hillary just on a whim decided to trade cattle futures, and she made, I don't know, 20,000% or something like that. So she's one of the smartest women I've ever heard of, one of the most well-read, educated people I've ever known. And she's never engaged in corruption, which is why we love her and want her to be president. But she's great at cattle trading.
Wait, so are you going to support Nancy Pelosi as she tries to run for president then? Because she is also such an incredible trader.
She's an amazing trader, one of the world's best traders ever. Just really an excellent. She's more good at equities, though. It's a different thing. Cattle trading is a little harder.
Okay. So you admire more commodity type traders.
I like that Hillary Clinton dipped into the commodities trade, and I really admire that she did so well.
Interesting.
Sorry, P, what were you saying?
I just was curious if there was like an actual nuanced story there. I was going to ask you to tell it because I imagine you knowing the deep history of. No, it's just something anyone can look up. She was she did an amazing job trading cattle. One of the best. you keep saying that, but I mean, like, there's got to be some salacious underpinning.
That's-
Like, was she fucking the cattle? Like, what was
She
happening?
wasn't fucking the cattle. She was just trading them like a boss.
I find that hard to believe.
In 1978 and 1979, lawyer and First Lady of Arkansas, Hillary Rodham Clinton, engaged in a series of trades of cattle futures contracts. Her initial $1,000 investment had generated nearly $100,000, which is equivalent to $373,360.84 in 2021, when she stopped trading after 10 months. She won 100 extra portfolio in 10 months?
Yeah.
There's something going on. Tell us what it is, Junseth. Is she half cow? Could she see in the folds
I don't know.
of
How
the cow's
she's
flesh
great
what the
at
future would
cattle
be?
trading. I just want the world to know how good she is at cattle trading. I think it's very important. I mean, if there's nothing to investigate, then don't investigate. And that's clearly what the case is here. There was nothing untoward about Hillary Clinton's 100x return on cattle trading in the 70s. She's clean. She's as clean as a Tyson cow, as they say.
Somebody just chat if you are being paid by Big Tyson.
Yes, I am.
Well, I appreciate the honesty.
Any relation to Mike Tyson?
Yep. It's that's his family. That's how he got the money to start boxing.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't actually ask at the top, but are you wearing pants today?
Yep. Well, no shorts.
What?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think I was going to set up. You can't have the same joke twice. I mean, I've done that joke many times, but can't do the
I've
same
literally
joke.
not worn pants for a single episode since our pantsless wonderful episode. I'm hurt right now.
Not wearing underwear, if that's any consolation.
No.
Oh, you're twisting it around. Got it.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm disappointed.
Okay, so what else we got on this quiz? This terrible, awful quiz.
Okay.
Perfect. Yes, I love it. Okay, this is good.
Yes, no questions only. Question number 1: is Ted Cruz lying about Bitcoin?
He's lying, Ted.
HODL is the only one who believes Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I actually don't hate Ted Cruz. Like I've heard Ted Cruz's takes. I think Ted Cruz is genuinely trying to understand this stuff. And I think he's actually got he's decided to, as part of his political endeavors, kind of wade into the water of like the millennial generation's activities. So I know he's actually playing some video games and stuff like that. The other day I heard him on an interview. He brought up Asmongold, who's a YouTuber, a well-known YouTuber for gamers. Very, I watch Asmongold just because I enjoy his takes. But yeah, like I think there is quite a bit of honesty in his exploration of it.
Oh, good God. Good fucking God. That's not a yes or no answer, HODL.
Wait, but
it's like Sesame Street. Ass man gold. It's like that. Yeah, if you can't read.
All right. Q, give us another of these terrible questions. Actually, wait. Here's an idea. Junseth, you can ask any of us a question.
I don't want to ask any questions. I come on to be asked.
Fair enough.
I don't want to think.
All right. Fair enough.
P literally just tried to phone out his job of hosting the show.
You're goddamn right I did. Look, it's all about information arbitrage. Q. You should know this by now.
I'm doing enough work trying to find these pictures to put in the background.
It's true. HODL is doing the Lord's work trying to promote a terrible shitcoin. Oh, good God.
So next quiz question. It's okay. It's all right, Q.
He literally doesn't have one. You had a 3-question quiz. What the fuck is this?
I do have more questions. But to be honest,
this
I want
isn't
you
a
fucking
quiz.
dare. Don't you fucking dare.
Quizzes have answers that you get right or wrong.
Well, you gave me the wrong answer on the Ted Cruz question. So
what was the right answer?
The right answer is no. He's a fucking career grifter. So why on this grift do you believe him?
Oh, I don't know. Like, Ted Cruz is a good man. What kind of toxic weight loss? Becca wants to know if you have them on here because you're starting a toxic weight loss program.
Hey,
Becca.
whoa, Greg, I am skinny enough for all 3 of us, all 4 of us. Maybe not HODL.
That's right.
He drinks his Diet Dr. Peppers.
We can't hear you, HODL. Remember, your microphone is garbage.
I feel like HODL's internet might actually be okay now. Like he seems to be moving fine.
He
I
seems
genuinely
good,
think he
but
just
we've
left
gone through this
himself on
before.
mute.
Look, we've tried it all. We've tried it all.
He just put himself
I
on
have-
mute intentionally.
I have great.
At this point, he just doesn't want to participate. He just wants to troll us.
This is what we're reduced to in the bear market. Just nonsense. Oh.
Fuck you, Craig.
Oh, all right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
The thing I gotta say, the thing I'm amazed at more than anything at this moment is that HODL can spell without like a checker. Honestly, an unexpected lesson I've learned. I didn't know.
What you're not seeing is his daughter, which you can actually see through.
She's
the
writing.
sunglasses.
She's writing them. Ooh, man!
I can actually see her through the
like
reflection of
3-year-old
his
child.
sunglasses. Daddy, no, you don't spell fuck like that. There's a kid.
Maddie, we're not doing boobs today. Okay, put it down. I'm reading the chats. It says someone wants boobs. Not today. Not today. You
Yeah.
can't have them.
Yeah,
Well,
fair enough. Fair enough.
No.
All right.
So why will Bitcoin be worth $1 million this decade?
These are like questions you get in a fucking like fortune cookie.
Well, that seems like a
Exactly.
presumptuous question. So do you know when people say that it? Oh man, it begs the question. It begs the question.
I've never
I
heard
feel
that
like I have to
before.
explain this to people. Yeah, fuck off.
It begs the question though of like what that means.
You're begging the question. I don't know that Bitcoin will be worth $1 million this decade. It might be. It might not be though.
So what are you going to buy with all of your Bitcoin one day? What is the thing that you're looking forward to buying?
Well, I'm having like right now. I'm thinking like we're trying to conceive a baby. If we can't, I'll probably buy one from the black market.
A black baby?
Whatever's available. Whatever's cheapest. Probably a black baby.
Good strategy. Yellow just wants us to fight. What can we fight about, Roman?
Who does?
Yellow.
Oh, this is the bear market. Just fight. I see. Okay. Oh my god.
Oh, actually, no. I have a question for you, Junseth. Serious one. What is the most awkward interview that you had while doing Bitcoin Uncensored? Because
oh man, we had a lot of doozies.
Well, wait, it's two-parter. It's two-parter. One is, which conversation was the most awkward overall, and then separately, whether it was awkward overall, did you personally feel the most awkward in, or the most uncomfortable, I should say?
Well, okay, so maybe I can think of two good ones. We tried to corner Roger Ver one time, and that was very uncomfortable because we'd been given I don't know. Do you know who BTC Drac is?
I'm not sure actually.
BTC Drac. Well, BTC Drac at the time was kind of like liaisoning for like Bitcoin Core, and he would come in and he would try to like influence things we did. We generally didn't listen to him, but like on the Roger Ver interview, what happened is he cornered us and basically like gave us a script. He's like, look, these are like the good questions that like Ver can't answer. Ask him these things. And oh my God, peace, stop it.
Keep going.
And we looked at them, and they were good questions. They were, generally technical and fine. And we got Ver on, and I remember we did the interview with him. This is during his BCH, trying to like promote BCH. So we get Ver on, and Ver is doing his thing, and we're asking questions. And it occurs to me in the middle of the interview that this line of questioning is the same fucking line of questioning that every podcaster has put Ver through, and that Drac had been going to every single podcaster that was going to interview Ver and basically giving him this set of like questions. And the result is that Ver had, done what a virus does and mutated and had answers for every single one of them. So like it was one of the more embarrassing interviews where we did one, it was with Ver, and we got murdered because the guy gish galloped and had like all sorts of answers for every single one of the questions. Whereas we didn't do our sort of like throwing people off kind of questioning that time. And it was somewhat an abdication of principles. I think that was the most embarrassing show for me, mainly because Ver should have been an easy foe to defeat. But I think that the entire Bitcoin community had a had a couple Bitcoiners like Drac that just were disrupting the ability of people who do their thing to do their thing because they thought that he might have some inside knowledge. The other interview, I think that was just maybe even there's so many. Vinay Gupta was in my opinion one of the better interviews. Like it was more memeable. That guy's a nut, and it was just like we would. Now I don't know that you asked what was a better interview, but what most awkward and most what?
I mean, honestly, I like the direction you're going. I'm so curious.
All right. So Vinay Gupta was like immensely memeable. He was like, doing like weird shit with his hands and calling us names. He was a refard, as HODL wrote. And it was just a remarkably fun interview because he was so unaware of how he looked and made a fool of himself. I liked those. Everyone seems to really like the Perry Ann Boring interview. That was pretty standard fare. She's just dumb. So it was just really an easy interview to do. Like she walked into that herself because I literally don't know that she knows what a blockchain is even today.
Okay. Interesting. All right. It's a good answer.
Like in these moments where you have the opportunity to take down the big bad boss of the video game level, why didn't you?
Josh, Veer isn't an idiot. You wouldn't have won either way. Josh, you don't know what you're talking about. So you're wrong. Like you're just wrong. Veer fell for Craig Wright. Like that should tell you everything you need to know.
Can you answer Yellow's question?
Sorry, what was the question?
It's up on screen. Did Veer touch you under the table?
Touch you under the table? No, he didn't. I always, it was interesting. I always liked Veer as a person until he started pushing BCH, and at that point, I think it just became clear he wanted to be everybody's enemy, and that's what he got. He got to be everyone's enemy. Veer isn't an idiot. I fully disagree. So you're allowed to think he's not. I think he is.
Just so you know, Greg is agreeing with you, but no one agrees with HODL. HODL is still in the worst position.
I gotta say, like, I'm so impressed. HODL is like really sticking this out. Like,
really
I love this new like written form communication. Also, how like you can totally jump back into the YouTube chat and like we can like read your answers there. But I also like this medium. No. See, yeah, there you go. Oh, this is great. He's got like a preset list of answers. Okay, wait.
Can we just talk about the fact that HODL must clearly have nothing better going on than to just be a mute mime?
Well, he's doing this instead of working out, so
yeah. I'm waiting with bated breath to see what he throws up.
I mean, we can Arskis, we can remove HODL, but like, what's the fun in that?
No, what the fuck is wrong with you? He is contributing the most valuable information.
I'm just reading the chat.
We're just shit posting.
Josh, I think you are new here. That's what I think. I don't know who you are, but you're new here.
What if wait, pause. What if Josh is one of Veer's like burner accounts?
It could be one of Veer's burner accounts.
How many pieces of paper do you have? Go ahead, Q.
Too many. Way too many. I want to be very careful saying the boogeyman's name, but like with the CSW of it all, like what happens if somehow by some weird loophole in the court of law, CSW is confirmed as Satoshi?
It's just like, that's not how truth works.
Will you bend the knee? That's not how
truth works. But, no, that's not how truth works. I mean, like anyone can tell me CSW is Satoshi. That's fine. It's in my personal opinion, I believe very strongly and will forever, no matter what evidence is presented in court, that he is not Satoshi. But that's my personal opinion, and you can do whatever you want with that.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit. I hear you, HODL.
It is interesting. It is interesting that like CSW has made everybody afraid to just say he's not Satoshi.
I know, that's what's so fucked up.
Yeah, and that's fine, but it's a little weird. And all he would have to do is sign those transactions, and he couldn't. CSW -- fraud. See, even HODL can't write it. Oh, equals. That's an equal sign. I got it. Okay.
We're getting there, guys. We're getting there.
We're proud of you. Proud of you, John.
Who does Junseth think is Satoshi? I mean, I don't know. I don't care. And if I had any sense of who it was, I don't think I would tell you. Personally.
But like, if the U.S. government was Satoshi, how much of a problem will that be for you?
None.
Where do these questions
Doesn't
come
matter.
from?
It doesn't matter.
It, honestly, at this point, it's just the leftover
Oh,
wheat.
shit. That's
Honestly, I kind of wish, like, I'd welcome that. I probably wouldn't be living in my mom's basement anymore, but I welcome that.
Look, my friends, we are 2/3 of the way through this. We only have 33 more minutes. We're almost there. We're in the home stretch.
What are you building now? Junseth, we'll start with you because HODL still refuses.
Fucking HODL. Just fucking speak, dude. This sucks.
The only person I can ask a question to is Junseth.
It just sucks. He's just faking it.
You're doing it on purpose.
Go on, Q. Sorry, what?
Just smack the table. Smack the table really hard. No, not you. HODL.
Oh.
Because last time you did that, I heard that. No.
Wait, Junseth, the last time we hung out, we went to a Waffle House. Was it you or John that was telling us about like the logistics around the Waffle House franchise?
That would probably have been me. I'm obsessed with the Waffle House franchise as a business case.
Go through it. Really... Take us through it right now. I'm curious.
Well, Waffle House just is very, very into sort of templated exercises that any dum-dum can do. And they just are an excellent business because of it. So like they have, little like ways that they signify which waffles or which order is what. And they use like literally pepper colors to do it. And they're just great with ordering and just keeping things very, very much in order. They're a highly profitable business, extremely profitable. And I fucking love the way they do it. It's an incredibly cool business to watch. Everything is out in the open. It's super clean compared to what like a restaurant of that like price point would generally be. And the only thing you have to worry about is like not, getting shot up by a mass shooter.
Go on.
Speaking of, I discovered something. I had a shower thought this week. Firing squads for execution?
I know of them, yes. I've never participated in one myself.
Those are the opposites of mass shootings. Think about it.
Interesting.
It's a bunch of shooters hitting at one person.
Whoa. That's some deep fucking shit, man.
I know.
There really is a special place in hell for us.
Behind me is Wagner, one of the greatest composers of all time. He wrote the Ring Cycles and Flight of the Nibel. I was going to say Nibelungenlied, but that's not what he said. It's Flight of the Valkyries. Flight of the Nibelungenlied.
And I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
The Ring Cycle. It's Wagner. It's Wagner. He was a wonderful German composer.
Here it is.
What?
Also a Nazi.
We don't know. He was long before the Nazis. One of Hitler's greatest inspirations. But
I'm an
long
uncultured swine, clearly.
Yeah. And an amazing composer. Not necessarily a great man.
So you believe in separating the art from the artist?
He would definitely be canceled. He would definitely be canceled today. So
I feel like you have like a giant like salad bowl with like questions that you just like ask people on the street. Like, hey, can you write like a question that's like really good? And then you just throw into the salad bowl. And then whenever there's a silence, you like pull it out. And some of them are like smeared with human feces as well. And you just like read them regardless. It's like a performance
Whatever.
piece.
I like it.
Honestly, if you DM me a question, eventually I'll ask it. I just decided to use all the questions in my, like, not the DMs I've approved, but like the hidden DMs. Those are the questions I'm using today. Like I see all the DMs.
Nice.
All right. Where do we go from here? Junseth, I want to hear you rant about something.
Well, you gotta bring something up that I hate, you know?
People.
I like people. People are generally pretty good.
Coinbase.
I don't even hate Coinbase. Honestly, like I've been using Coinbase. I used Coinbase for a very long time. I don't hate them. Bitcoiners hate them. I find them to be generally the most accessible exchange for new people to come in. They have a name that people trust, and no matter what you feel about them, they're probably not losing your Bitcoins anytime soon. They might though. I don't know. Because you never know when these exchanges are going under. But like Coinbase is, public. That lends them an air of credibility. Didn't seem to matter for Voyager, but it might matter for Coinbase. And that's, like they're not Enron yet. So who knows? You never know. But I don't hate them. I think that if you're in Bitcoin, the idea of hating an exchange is very stupid. You should buy Bitcoin wherever you can. And you should pull it off the exchange and put it in your own wallet. And that's how that works. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you want an ethical exchange? What do you want? Like an exchange that doesn't burn energy? Who gives a shit? Buy it wherever it's cheapest.
Those things. I don't give a fuck about those things. I give a fuck about the fact that they front run and literally get gifted tokens.
Welcome to America. This is America.
Okay,
this
childish.
is America.
So wait. My problem with Coinbase is the fact that it's basically a shitcoin casino. That when you go there under the auspices of like education, they have these multi-million-dollar like educational, pieces of software or whatever, that curriculum that goes through and just basically gets people to buy these other shitcoins that they're going to get wrecked on. It sounds like you're saying like that's fucking America.
I don't care. I mean, who cares? Like everyone in America wants shitcoins. They're a business. They're going to give them shitcoins. I mean, I don't care about people going and play. Like me and others have spent many years trying to tell people not to buy shitcoins other than Litecoin, which is the best cryptocurrency that anyone's ever created.
Don't buy Litecoin.
So we've spent many, many years trying to tell people not to buy shitcoins. We've given them reasons. We've told them that everything in this space but Bitcoin is a scam. And yet they go and they buy shitcoins and Litecoin and all of these other things. And that's fine. I can't say it fine. Give them the fucking options. Coinbase will probably be fined hugely for facilitating the selling of illegal securities at some point. It should probably be reflected in their share price, but whatever. Like, I can't seem to stop people or convince them. And like something like a Swan Bitcoin, which is not a shitcoin casino, I mean, it's really only effective for those who agree that Bitcoin is the only thing that matters anyways. Like, what are you're going to send your dad there? He's going to be like, yeah, okay, this is only Bitcoin, but what about that Ethereum thing? And he'll go find Coinbase on his own. I don't care. Like, people can go get wrecked themselves.
That's fair. Like, I don't disagree with the notion that people should have the right to go do whatever they want. But
I don't even believe that. I don't believe that people should do whatever they want or have the right to do whatever they want. I just think this stuff is, it's the people playing in Coinbase and losing money. They're a bunch of pores. Like there's no one of consequence doing it. I hear the amounts that people are losing. They're like, I lost my life savings of $10,000. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't have been here. You didn't have the money to play this game. You decided to play gamble with like your wife's money. Like, that was dumb. That was really dumb. And now you're poorer. Like I don't know what to tell people. Like you come into this space, and if you don't learn everything about it, you will become poorer very quickly. Even if at one point in this like cycle you're worth $100 million, you will be poorer than you started if you don't know exactly what you're investing in here. And it takes 5 years to figure that out.
Wait, so you would say people shouldn't like DCA in, put a little skin in the game, and then learn about Bitcoin from there?
I don't care how people do it. Like, you want to come into Bitcoin. This is why it's not an old man's game. You come in here, your Pokemon game will be reset. You will have it reset. You cannot prevent that. You will lose all of your money. It's very likely a huge percentage of Bitcoiners lose all their Bitcoin at some point, and that just is what it is. And the reason is because they don't understand what this is. They keep their money on Voyager, or they keep their money on another exchange or whatever, and they don't put it into like a hardware wallet. So, they don't, understand that they can't buy a ledger from Amazon. They don't understand all of the risks that are associated with Bitcoin or any of these cryptos. And that's really that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to prevent them from getting wrecked, and they'll get wrecked in Bitcoin, and they'll get wrecked in Litecoin, and they'll get wrecked in Ethereum. They will never listen to anything you tell them. I've watched this so many times. You might convert a few, but you can't get people to do smart things. They just won't do it.
What's that great quote that's like, is it our job to educate the, sniveling masses, or do we just, I'm going to butcher it. I'll find it. I'll come back to you.
Hey, can you hear me now that I'm wearing these?
Yeah,
a little bit better.
But
actually,
your mouth is not matching. Your
It
mouth
doesn't
is
matter.
not matching
Say
your.
your
At this point, we'll take it for the final 25 minutes.
Say your piece.
I was just gonna say, I was just going through Reminator, which is a great read if you've never read it. And it basically just 1800s, exactly what Junseth is talking about, and has been digital monkey JPEG market for some goddamn reason.
So bad.
Turn your camera off.
Is that bad?
Try that.
It's that
try,
bad?
Try turning your camera off and then doing audio only.
How
Say it
is
again now.
this? Is
Much better.
this any
So
better?
far, it's good.
Really?
It seems
Weird.
to be. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't see your lips
Anyways,
move,
I was
so that's better.
going reminiscences of a stock operator, and it was basically what the Junseth is talking about, and it was like what advice who wants to gamble in the stock market, only advice you can actually give that person, but no one ever is supposed to do.
Good God, how is it so bad? You cut in and out, my friend.
Probably got like a Comcast outage or whatever they have there.
All right, this was my last attempt. Peace out, boy.
You can't even say goodbye. We love you, HODL. Thank you so much for joining, and also for sticking with it and holding up ridiculous handwritten signs by your daughter.
Just
That's
Hodler, you're
well.
asking what exchange is better than Coinbase. I'm from New York. Any advice? I don't know. The goal of an exchange is to, when you put money in, you get a certain amount of Bitcoin. So I use Swan Bitcoin, swanbitcoin.com/legit. That's my affiliate marketing link. So if you want to go there, you can give me money. swanbitcoin.com/legit. And if you, but I like Swan Bitcoin. Coinbase does it too. And there's lots and lots of others. And they all just get you Bitcoin.
What's your favorite animal, Junseth?
Tasmanian tiger.
Oh, those are really fucking cool, actually.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I wish that they hadn't gone extinct.
Yeah, there's only like 3 known photos of them, right?
Yeah, they're very, they're old. I would have loved to see one because they're just odd animals.
This is the strangest looking animal I've ever seen.
You never seen one?
No.
Yeah, they're fucking.
Yeah,
weird.
there's a whole society of people that are certain they still exist somewhere in the forests of Tasmania, and they're trying to find them, and they really think they have, but it's like the hunt for Bigfoot now, but it's the hunt for Bigfoot that once actually did exist.
Wait, do you not believe in Bigfoot?
Of course, I believe in Bigfoot. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I mean, you believe in Bitcoin, so you must believe in Bigfoot.
Yeah, of
Santa
course.
Claus.
Yeah, people are suggesting Strike. Strike is also great. Yeah, sign up at Strike/Shelly Legit.
Yellow. Ooh, I'll answer Yellow's question. You send them back a meme of Elon with the carrot haircut, and just a simple caption of, "I don't give a rat's ass what this person does." That's just my 2 cents.
Why do you think people are so obsessed with conspiracy theories, Junseth? Why is that?
Well, because
Why
it
is that
explains. So generally, conspiracies are leveled at black boxes. Bitcoiners like the black box of the Fed. They point things at it, and then you can fill in the holes with anything you want. So it gives you a better explanation than I don't know for something happening, and usually it's absolutely stupid. Like there's all sorts of things in history that have been true that have sort of quasi-confirmed conspiracies, but usually not fully confirmed the conspiracies, but it's enough that the conspiracists keep on going and they think they're onto something. So, conspiracies are just they're very compelling, especially against black boxes. You don't know what happened in this black box, so let's just fill it in. And that's that's the way it works. It's very compelling. I don't know why, like, the conspiracies of late are crazy. I can't figure it out. I can't figure out why people think 5G towers make COVID. That stuff blows my mind. I feel like that's just an articulation of how much dumber people are than I give them credit for.
What else you got besides 5G towers cause COVID? What are some of your other what's on your conspiracy theory hit list?
Oh man, I mean, like, the right had a bunch with regard to COVID. The left has an absurd amount with regard to Donald Trump. For 4 years they believed that he was a Russian spy. That one was my favorite. Yeah, there you go.
Definite Russian spy planted by Putin.
Yep. Yeah. It gets calls daily from Putin. Absolutely.
Well, no. He stopped getting the calls from Putin daily, and that's when he started calling Putin like
they moved to email or Signal,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all sorts of these, and the left believes that America is filled with Nazis. I find that one to be very funny because the only Nazi I know is Wagner. So the left believes that the nation's filled with Nazis, and like they live their life like this. And that one really blows my mind. Libertarians believe that the Fed is the like root of all evil. The most recent one, the most recent financial one that I've seen getting a lot of ground is the idea that Vanguard and BlackRock control the American economy. Or, people will say, like, and this is left and right, this one transcends political ideology, that they hold more of X stock than any other company, and therefore, like, they're in control of it, which I think is really an interesting way to tell people that a company sells indexes. So there's so many weird conspiracies that could easily be debunked if people knew anything. I mean, like the last week, you remember, did you see that Joe Biden sold all of our strategic oil reserves to China?
No, I did not see that one.
So last week, Biden released the strategic oil reserves of, oil from the strategic petroleum reserves, the SPRs, and it got bought by a Chinese company. And it was just like for the week, the conservatives were like running the story about how Biden had like sold our oil to China. Well, I look at that story, I'm like, that's not there's just no chance. Like, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, Biden's in his office, like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell our strategic petroleum reserves to China and no one will notice, and like it's clearly public information, like someone's going to notice. Well, so I try to figure out why it was that we sold it to China, and I find that by statute we sell our SPRs to whomever pays the most. Very logical. And China bid the most, so they got it. It's just like very standard. But someone's been waiting on this story to like turn it into a conspiracy, and I hear people like Tim Pool and everybody else talking about this, and it's been the way that we've done the release of the SPRs since forever. It's always been that way because oil is a fungible commodity, and you release it anywhere in the world, it should affect prices globally. That's it. Conspiracy.
There's a better way.
I think there's also, I think a big part of it as well is just the desire to feel persecuted. Like, people love to feel like they are in a minority that is being
the thing
unfairly.
I think that's true. And what's interesting about it more than anything is the way in which people strive to be persecuted. I can't tell you if I were to total the number of people that I've known over the years that claim that there's literally a white van that follows them around filled with FBI and CIA agents, it would be dozens. Dozens of people in my life have claimed this to be the case. I think
you associate with the wrong people.
This is early Bitcoiners. And it was always interesting to me that early Bitcoiners who were like this wanted the recognition that it would take to have an FBI van follow them around, but don't want the consequences of like what that would, like they don't actually want to be arrested for having done anything wrong or whatever. So like there's this like air of importance if you are in the in-group. And then within the in-group, there's like people that struggle to be even more in the in-group. So, oh yeah, you think that the FBI controls everything? Well, they're outside my house. So not only do I believe that, but also they're monitoring me because my belief is so problematic. So I don't know. It seems in some ways that it's just like a way to join clubs now, instead of like Curve, the workout salon for women and voyeuristic men. You can.
That's the new tagline, right?
That's actually the tagline. Yeah. You can join a club just by declaring your belief in something. And I guess it's a little bit like analogous to Christianity, where you like say, or even Islam, where you say the prayer, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, or you give your heart to Jesus and now you're a Christian. So like the magic words that you say somehow like enter you into the group. There does seem to be an air of that in the conspiracies. And I don't really know why the conspiracies have gone from like things that you can kind of sit there like, I can see how you think that about the Fed, but maybe it's not really true. Here's why. To like 5G causes COVID. I don't know how we got there. I don't know. But I can think of times in history where we've seen other people, like conspiracies like this also. There was a time when there's a book called The Sun, the Moon, and the Stars, and it talks about how the sun in New York was writing articles kind of satirically, but also no one really knew if it was satirical, about they got a telescope and they were reporting on the daily events of the people that they were looking at through the telescope on the moon. And this launched the Sun into a newspaper that like was like a long living newspaper that was bought and sold many times for many years. And this is the root of it, was this sort of like ridiculous journalism, this faux journalism. And it really was story writing, but like it was a different time. So people didn't know, like they didn't know you couldn't see the moon's surface with a telescope,
That's so interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah. So there's times people have believed crazy things. But I do think it's interesting in this era of like believe science that like there is literally no one who does. No one seeks out scientific answers.
Often not even scientists. There's so much political bullshit involved.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is a lot of this stuff is getting corrupted. So like I talk to people, really into the climate change stuff a lot. Just because, in general conversation, that kind of thing for years has been coming up if you're talking politics. And I'll say, how can you, like nowadays I say, how can you possibly blame people that are climate deniers when like during COVID, there was lie after lie after lie, admitted lie told by like the CDC and Fauci, like the don't wear masks and then going on TV crazy. And being like, well, I only said that because we needed masks for the healthcare workers and I wanted people to not buy them. So yes, we lied, but it was for their own good. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's a principle we operate under then as government. Like we lie for our own good. So, okay. Like why would anyone believe any of the science that government endorses after that? Especially if it's funded by the government. Like you've shot yourself in the foot. There's an entire generation of people that watch that happen and will never believe you, no matter whether it's true or not. So like maybe you staved off, 3 million people dying from COVID or something like that. But if you're right about global warming, the result is that you've caused, 15 million people in the future to die or something. It's crazy to me that they will cut off their nose to spite their face like that. And they don't even care, nor do they believe that they did that.
Yeah. The crazier thing is the people that experienced all of that and then still like beg for the yoke around their neck.
Yeah, I mean, the COVID thing was really, really interesting watching people. I mean, like the biggest tell for me was I would walk somewhere without a mask and some harpy Karen in the middle of the airport would be like, "Put your mask on!" Just screaming at you. And then 10 minutes later, they're like, "Okay, everybody, the government has said that masks are no longer requirement. You can take them off." And like that same harpy just like rips it off and is like, "I don't want this thing." You'd be like, what the fuck? Like I go to the airport now, no one wears a mask. But like I remember there was a time not so long ago, like a couple of months, where 90% of people would scream at you. Like like all of you compliant like little bitches. It was kind of weird to watch. Not that I like was opposed to mask wearing, but like I read the science. Like N95s work really well. Everything else was kind of like, nah, not really. And I'm not saying like I'm not trying to spread medical disinformation, YouTube. It just seemed to me that it was really interesting that like there was literally this contingent of people that thought that if you took like a paper towel and put it over your face, you were somehow like more protected than somebody who didn't.
Yeah, I mean the the entire experience in terms of like the narrative shaping that was going that went on through the COVID experience, it's like a theme park ride, was really fascinating to me. I mean, I think Bitcoiners were some of the first groups to be like, oh my gosh, this is a really serious thing when the data first started coming in. And then at that point, it seemed like really, really scary because there was all these reports from China, people dropping dead on the street, all that stuff. Most of it fabricated. Now we understand. And then, of course, it seemed like it was at the point where everybody when the government started dog fooding these narratives in. It seems like the people that kind of got it early on shifted and were like, oh wait, none of this makes sense. But then everybody else aped in. And it was just this weird reversal of
it was weird to me because like I remember when the Attorney General said don't buy masks don't work, like comment number one was like Bruce Fenton being like, you do you, dumb like we're gonna buy masks, idiot.
Yeah.
And this is like early February.
Yeah.
And I bought a fuck ton of masks. Everyone I knew bought masks, all these, and then like and I remember
going into
Twitter,
grocery stores.
Yeah, and you were the only one wearing the mask, and
exactly.
Your wife
people would be like,
was like,
the
"Why
fuck are you?" Yeah,
what's wrong with you? Like, you're scaring people. Remember when people weren't allowed to get on airplanes if they had a mask on because they looked too scary?
Yep.
And so there was this moment where like conservatives all jumped on the like precaution tail. They were like, "Okay, let's all be really cautious. We'll all put masks on." And then the data started coming out, and they were kind of like, "Okay, maybe this kind of mask wearing doesn't really work." And then like it flipped, and all of a sudden you had the Democrats going like, well, the government says to buy masks. You're like, the government said like 2 weeks ago not to buy masks. And we were the ones who bought them. You guys were making fun of us. You told us we were idiots and overly cautious. And now here we are 2 weeks later, and you're telling us that you're the smart ones, even though you can't even get masks. You're having to like have your like mom who's like 87 make them because you don't know how to use a sewing machine. And now that's like you're somehow smarter and better than the people who like had the instinct to buy them right away, but then now are not wanting to. It was crazy. And I've never seen people's mentality switch like that. And the inability to remember something that happened 2 weeks ago. Like they don't remember their opinion 2 weeks earlier. It was just gone.
Well, it's even crazier though. I think it was the stranger thing was when people do remember it, but there's no cognitive dissonance. Like it's just sort of like, or maybe there is cognitive dissonance, that's how we do it. But people will be like, yeah, I thought that a week ago. It's different now.
Relic of the Solstice didn't work. Then why did Jared send so much to Russia and China? No, the conservatives were downplaying. What world do you live in? You're an idiot. Like you're just an idiot. You don't remember what actually happened, Relic. You're dumb. I was watching this all happen. You're dumb. You don't know what was happening. It's like this is the thing. Like there is a whole group of people who are like, they cannot remember what happened like 2 weeks earlier, and they will switch their opinion and pretend like they're the smart ones.
I think it all comes back. I mean, it's interesting to draw parallels between that and then like the trials and tribulations in the Bitcoin space, especially during these bear markets.
It's true. Relic, you weren't watching everything. You're a moron. You're just a moron.
Well, yeah, I mean, but just like, like with the wasabi versus samurai thing, it's like, it just feels like,
oh yeah, like these debates in Bitcoin, they like literally, yeah, totally not the IRS. Hello, fellow Bitcoiners. I love these chats; they're great. Yeah, no, in Bitcoin it happens too. People forget what happened 2 weeks ago, or like people come in and they'll be like, "Why don't people like BitPay? I love BitPay. They provide a great service." And you're like, "Well, during the block wars, this happened," and like there's just a lot of new blood coming in pretty regularly, but yeah, like in Bitcoin, people forget exactly what I've seen people who were very much Bitcoin's going to 1 million, and then like the incident started going down there, Bitcoin's going to 5,000, right? So, people switch their opinions all the time in Bitcoin, and they don't seem to remember or have the grace to maybe back off and realize they don't know what they're talking about in times when like the volatility is happening. I remember everything. Us as what are you talking about? You have no idea, and just because Relic, I don't know what you're talking about. You're just nuts. You're a nutter. Like it did not happen. The way that you think it happened, it did not happen. Overestimate your own bias. Like I said, everyone said it was a hoax conservative. No, they didn't. You're remembering falsehoods. This is the problem with arguing with people about like conspiracies. Like that is a conspiracy in itself. the idea that like conservatives thought it was a hoax. I'm not even conservative, by the way, but like the idea that it's a hoax, like that was not leveled by like one party only, not in any way. The idea that like that COVID was a hoax, and it wasn't really that it was a hoax. It was that it wasn't as bad as everyone thought it was going to be. That's that. Many of us said no. That's not true. No, conservatives never said COVID was a hoax. Yeah, I don't mean to engage with the chat so much, but we're at the end. I feel like.
No, it's good. I'm here for it. Yeah, man.
Yeah. No, they never said it was a hoax, man. I have to go and get impressions done of my teeth.
You should probably do that.
Yeah.
That seems important. Also, I just want to know what is behind your green screen. Because the last time you were on, it was like a fucking bomb went off. There was like clothes everywhere. It was amazing.
Oh, same thing.
Same thing?
Yeah. I could pull it down.
Yeah, do it. I want to say
it's just your laundry back there.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I don't believe you. Show us the truth. Pierce the veil. Well,
see, it's Wagner.
Jesus.
That just goes to fully show
Wagner.
you that you didn't need the green screen behind you to create this virtual background.
That's pretty funny.
That's what's behind me. Is I took the green screen down. It's Wagner also. So
Our video
that would be amazing. That'd be a great bit, actually. If you had the green screen and then it was just you took it down.
That was the bit. All right, guys. I have to dip,
all right, my friend.
3 minutes early here so I can get to the dentist.
Do it.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining. Junseth, you're amazing. Thanks for sticking with us through the HODL's insanity. And
always a pleasure.
All right, my friend. Have a good one. Stay safe while you get your teeth impressioned. Don't swallow any of that goop. I did that once. But not a good scene.
Don't bite them.
I will.
Do not bite them when their fingers
the
are
whole
in your
point
mouth.
is to bite them.
All right, my friend.
Bye.
Adios. And then there were two. All right.
I'm out.
Next.
See you later, P. You're holding on the fort, right?
Friends, in a few minutes, we are going to have the BM Pro team, Dylan LeClair, Sam Rule, and potentially a special guest who will be talking about on-chain analytics, reading the tea leaves, and giving their opinions on where we go from here. Q, you've been yawning this entire time. What happened? Did you not get enough sleep? No.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And I was like batting in 9 hours a night, and I'm still yawning and tired.
Amazing. Any final words? We just had American HODL, Junseth.
Do not buy Litecoin. Coinbase is a scam. Get your keys off of exchange. Pants are optional when watching or joining us on BM Live. What else?
I think
there's a lot to unpack. I mean, to be honest with you, we could stir the pot a little bit here.
Do it.
So, like, whether or not you think COVID is real or not, there were actions made that have now discredited or disvalidated government officials and what they say. And I'll be the first to talk about how, I, for a very long time, kind of took what they would say at face value, knowing ultimately this is a politician with an agenda behind closed doors. But like, if you're doing something I naively believed that is labeled a public servant, that you are doing things for the best interest of the public based on your perspective and your life influences. If anything, my lesson from COVID was that that's just not the case. And it's a giant and absurd power struggle that perpetuates and props up certain individual issues that in a flash of a moment, individuals will be like, oh, this politician is now talking about the issues I care about, so they care about me. And if anything, what my takeaway from all of COVID was the fact that none of them give a flying fuck. They literally all have memberships to the same country club and dap each other up and like crack jokes about what the latest sort of headline catching thing that one of their peers or colleagues said. Like they're on the inside, none of us are. But yeah,
Buy Bitcoin.
buy Bitcoin.
All right, my friends, we're going to cut to commercial break, and then we will be back with Dylan LeClair and Sam Rule of BM Pro. See you in a minute.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking through those commercial breaks. And I'm excited to introduce our guests now for the BM Pro segment, Dylan LeClair and Sam Rule. And I believe we have a special guest as well, guys.
Hey, how we doing? Has TX joined or?
I don't believe yet, but we'll be joined by TXMC in just a moment. So I'm going to just ping him real quick. He has the he's here.
Nice.
Let's kick things off really quickly before he comes and join us on our little screen. Dylan and Sam, you guys put out an awesome report at the end of last week talking about some Bitcoin equities as well as just sort of the macro environment. Do you want to give a quick overview on that before we dive into today's topic with TXMC?
Yeah, sure. I mean, thanks. Are we not doing the spaces today, by the way? Sorry.
Oh, we are not, because we're just not going to do the spaces today because we don't have Chris and we totally dropped that ball.
All right, no worries, cool. Yeah, I mean, we just talked about, and it's been kind of a focus of ours pretty of late, is just kind of the correlation between Bitcoin and equities. Obviously, that's been top of mind in 2020, but we kind of dug a little bit deeper and kind of looked at Bitcoin related equities relative to Bitcoin and kind of the historical volatility of those, right? So everybody, likes to focus on Bitcoin and the relative underperformance as of late. But if you look historically at rallies throughout equity markets and Bitcoin and bear markets, they can really rip your face off to the upside, right? Especially short positions. And so especially like the crypto related equities had a huge kind of last month or so. So that was our focus on our Friday piece. But enough of me. I really want to welcome TXMC to the studio and excited to have you on because you've been putting out some absolutely killer content.
Thanks, guys. Glad to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, where did these just absolutely banger charts and threads come from, man? Just like big picture, Bitcoin macro. We've been wowed away and really kind of inspired by some of that stuff. I don't know if you want to give a shout out to what you do at Alpha Beta Soup. Just let listeners know about that a little bit first.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the compliment. I just kind of been exploring, the world of finance and economics, trying to get a better understanding of the world that we're living in. We're in kind of, I don't know, it feels like we're in a really important phase of our history here, at least for our lifetimes. And so I've been trying to understand it. I'm just kind of a relentlessly curious person. And so as I go along and I think I find cool things or I, discover some insight, I just kind of post it on Twitter. And I really enjoy making custom charts and things like that. And so thankfully we have a lot of cool economic data that's available for free thanks to our tax dollars. And so I just kind of go crazy with that stuff. And my channel that you mentioned, is called Alpha Beta Soup on YouTube. And I try to make entertaining videos talking about the things I'm looking at, explaining them, because I'm just learning like anyone else. And so by explaining it to other people, it helps me to get a better grasp of it. And so that's really what started it, and seems to be going pretty well now, about a year in.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, would love to, I guess, and this is, pretty big picture and we could just dive right into it, but you put out a pretty banger thread. I think it was like, I don't know, a week or two ago. And it started off with financial cabin pressure is rising as quickly as price. And I think I sent it over to the live team, and maybe they can just kind of go through it and show it for the viewers on YouTube as you go. But you want to kind of give just a quick, and obviously not quick, but just an overview of that thread and your kind of broader macro thesis and tie it into Bitcoin, and then we can kind of dive into the individual parts as we go.
Sure. It's kind of hard to know where to start, Yeah,
it's just hop right in.
We're at a big, yeah, of course. We're at a tough spot because of the excesses of the last couple of years in particular. We're the Fed and also the economy are kind of paying the piper now for some of those decisions. And I think that because of their flawed approach and some of the inherent weakness in the metrics they use to determine if they're doing a good job, the Fed's attempts to control inflation, which is already out of their hands, are likely, in my view, going to lead us into a very tough spot economically that will be difficult to get out of. But even bigger picture than what might happen over the next few months, which we could talk about, and it's hard to know the exact sequence of events. Bigger picture, it does seem like we are kind of in a culmination phase of a long-term debt cycle, of like a long societal arc, which is talked about in the fourth turning. And there's kind of just a culmination of events that are all taking place over the last few years and what appears to be the upcoming few years. And what I really talk about in the thread here is what I think is going on right now with the economy, how I don't think the Fed is going to be able to tighten as far as their plans express that they would like to. And that's in large part due to the mountains of debt that our economic system is saddled with. The entire global financial system really is saddled with debt. We have over $300 trillion of debt, in USD, around the world, both public and private. And those have a significant cost to maintain. And so when you hear about these tightening plans in an effort to control inflation, which is completely out of the hands of the central banks, it really seems like they're aiming for a target that they can't achieve. And, when you see what happens to debt-based systems throughout history, they get to a point where, there's so much leverage in the system, they must continually expand, or the weight of their promises, of their interest rate obligations, collapse the system. And, when societies have gone through that in the past, the way I kind of end my thread here is tying it back to Bitcoin, which is part of my kind of long-term thesis about why I invest in it. Societies in the past that have engaged in fiat experiments have always met with economic collapse. And in the wake of that disaster, society eventually returns back to hard assets, to commodity-based monies, to sound money. And for the first time in our story as a species, I believe we're coming up to one of those phases, and in that it's, very good chances I'm placing my bets that it happens in our lifetime. And the new wrinkle that I see now is that where in the past the escape valve was to, gold and copper coins, to silks and other commodities, in some cases to other currencies that are cash based, those were the escape valves. But now we have Bitcoin. We have a, digital, borderless, unconfiscatable bearer asset that people can channel their wealth into as their fiat is destroyed. And so that's kind of the core of my investment thesis. And when you see everything going on in the world, it really feels like we're in one of those phases where when we look back, 50 years from now, we look back and we say, wow, that was really like a pivot point for that generation. I think we're in that now.
I want to.
You got a Q.
If I could just really quickly, I want to ask a question, TXMC. The very first chart that you introduce, where you're essentially showing population in each little subsect, the thing I found so surprising was, while we see almost minimal to no growth in the prime working age groups, the older groups are drastically increasing their sort of total amount of population. What can you break this down?
Yeah.
How does this strain our economy? How does this strain our global financial systems?
Sure. And when this is the US population broken up by age. Each of the colored columns across the chart are an age group. And what we've seen, what we can identify here, this data goes from, I think, like 1998 to last year. And it really encapsulates what's going on with the labor force, and it has significant implications for the future of the economy. And those are, we are now in a phase where the largest US generation in history, which were the boomers, are at retirement age, right? That really began in 2010, which was 65 years after the end of World War II. And that's retirement age in the United States. Once we got to that point, retirement became a significant net drag on labor participation because we had so many people entering the twilight years of their life. And also because of advances in medicine, people are living significantly longer than they used to. So because of those two forces, the older population of the United States is exploding. And this is actually happening in other Western nations as well, but the US data is the one that I impact here. And it has a couple of implications. One of those being that as people get older, they participate less in labor, particularly after the age of about 50, 55. And you can really see that if you're looking at my chart, after the yellow groups, you start to get into age 55 and age 60, and you can see the black line, which represents labor participation, starts falling off. And it falls like 10 or 15% every 5 years. And this is data, this is 25 years of data here that we're looking at. So as people get older, they want to work less. They're ready to retire. They've put in decades of labor and they're ready to enjoy their twilight years, right? But we now have more and more of our population entering this aspect of their lives. We're also having fewer children at the same time that we are living longer and experiencing this boom of older portions of our population. So the actual pool of available labor into the future looks very different than what it did in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, when this massive generation of Americans was in their prime working age years, when they were in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, and they were working at the highest clip that they would in their lives normally. They were buying homes. Their consumer spending was driving the economy. Well, many of those people now are considerably older. They have wealth, but by the nature of them being older, they spend less. And while some of them may come back to work as higher costs threaten their fixed income budgets, right? Some of those people, even though they've got some income, they'll have to go back to work. And we can see to some degree, some people are going back to work that entered retirement in the last couple of years. But there's a significant sea change occurring in the demographics of the labor force. And as we go forward, if there are fewer people available to work productive jobs and support economic output, that puts a lot of pressure on the force of innovation to try to fill that void, which is something Jeff Booth talks a lot about. If you've ever read his book, The Price of Tomorrow, he talks quite a bit about how innovation can be a deflationary force. Well, if that can't fill the void and sustain society's embedded expectation of perpetual growth, then the only person who can step in at that point is the government via stimulus and creating artificial growth. And I haven't even mentioned the actual entitlement costs, the healthcare and social service costs of an exploding aging population. That's another force that kind of weighs on government budgets, to where we need continued growth and continued output to help to support those costs. So we're really entering an odd, I wouldn't call it odd, but it's a new phase demographically where we used to have strong labor to support the economy, even as we went through periods of economic weakness. As we go forward over the next 10, 15, 20 years, as another 50 million Americans enter retirement age, those forces start to look drastically different. And it becomes more and more likely that stimulus kind of has to help fill some of that void if innovation can't do it.
TX, I wanna pick your brain on this. I was listening to Luke Gromen yesterday and earlier today as well. He was on a recent podcast, and he was talking about how, you know, there's, since I think post great financial crisis, the powers that be, if you will, the World Bank, the IMF, the Fed, they're like the guys that have, you know, an understanding of this, even if they, you know, don't always show it. We're talking about how, you know, the public debt, especially in the U.S., was unsustainably high, and you know, these kind of long-term debt cycles have to be dealt with in some way. And so they talked about, it was this paper published by the IMF called the liquidation of I'm gonna bundle the
liquidation of government debt.
Yeah, there we go. And if we want to go to TX's profile and just scroll, I think like 4 or 5 posts down, he has a great chart on just kind of GDP, public debt, and then public debt to GDP. And so, interestingly enough, right, the kind of the playbook here that they outlined, and they first published this piece in 2011, right? So over a decade ago, was that, you know, there's a couple ways to deal with these, you know, very high debt levels, and you know, you could default, austerity, like that's not politically feasible. You're not going to default if you can print your own currency. The chart's just a little more down, guys. Just a couple more posts.
It's the next one. Yeah.
And so interestingly enough, right, like they got public debt to GDP down from 136%. I think your chart is showing maybe annual, but on a quarter-to-quarter basis, they reached as high as 136, and now it's 124, right? So they, with a combination of high inflation and low rates, which was outlined in the paper as one of the ways to do this, they actually brought the debt to GDP levels lower. So that's kind of the playbook here, is like, okay, aside from default, we're in a debt spiral. How do we do it? Well, if we run inflation hot for years, not too high because it gets, you know, it gets politically unpopular, which we're seeing today. But if we do it just high enough and keep rates just low enough, we can erode the real value of this debt and maybe, you know, theoretically escape. And it worked. But now we're seeing it's so interesting that the playbook is working, you know, quote unquote working, not for the working class, but just for the system in general, right? To survive and sustain itself long term. But there's obviously a ton of social discontent with the solution, right? So now they're actually reversing and raising rates into an economic slowdown. And it's just going to, I think, in my opinion, exacerbate this entire problem, right? As tax receipts fall lower, as real kind of productivity falls lower because of tighter monetary and financial conditions, we're back to square one in terms of the problem of too much debt and not enough real productivity. So kind of what are your thoughts here on maybe the short to intermediate term, as well as, you know, we've been talking about the long term, but, you know, obviously everybody's favorite question and no one has the answer to it is like, when pivot?
Right.
Luke Gromen was saying August, which I think is, you know, I really respect the hell out of Luke and his opinions on things. I think that's a little bit early.
That's aggressive.
That's very aggressive. But just in terms of, you know, I think the train's coming off the tracks real fast here. And Sam and I are joking. We send each other economic data, you know, every day, and we've yet to see one good looking chart over the last month with just all this, like the deterioration of data and public sentiment. But just kind of, what are your thoughts on you know, the rest of 2022 and maybe 2023?
Yeah, sorry, I got some water in my throat. Hold on.
No worries.
Went down the wrong pipe. All right. Yeah, you know, that liquidation of government debt paper, it's really interesting because it does outline the playbook, which is allow inflation to run hot, suppress yields so that they're below inflation, and over time, the debt just kind of dissolves away. But the problem that they have run into now, which you alluded to, Dylan, is the inflation has gotten too high, right? It can't sit at 8-9% year over year. And part of that reason it's so high is because of things out of the control of the Fed at this point. You know, supply chain constraints, China's zero COVID policy, and Russia invading Ukraine. All of those have exacerbated what really started in 2020. Obviously, fiscal stimulus created a lot of demand, and then after we reopened the economy, that didn't help either. But inflation has gotten far out of control for them, and so I think that the playbook of, oh, let's just let it run a little steamy, as Janet Yellen has even said in the past, like, oh, we're open to the idea. Before she was Treasury Secretary, I think back when she ran the Fed, she said something to the extent of, it's even okay for us to let inflation run above target for a period of time, as long as the economy seems like it's doing okay. And you would think maybe they're doing that to a degree here. Maybe they don't want inflation to just all of a sudden vanish back down to 1%. Because it is helping whittle away the debt. Like you mentioned on my chart, it is annual. If you look at it by quarter, it does go up to 136, but my chart was an annual average. But you can see it goes up to about 130 or so, and it's come down to about 124, 125% debt to GDP. So it has worked to a degree, but because it's so high, and because there are some serious structural issues in the economy that might make high costs remain stubborn, it's driving a lot of social unrest, like kind of just simmering under the surface. It's flat out, revolt in certain countries, but here in the United States, it's still just kind of brewing under the surface. It's obviously the number one topic for voters in a midterm election year. And I think in some ways, like you said, you and Sam are like looking at all this data, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And you're absolutely right. And it feels like in some ways that they're just trying to keep the wheels on the bus until we get through the election, right? Because then afterwards they can all kind of relax, and we can just kind of let the economy deteriorate. Because I think if they don't want to have to talk about stimulating the economy or helping cover costs for working class citizens who lose their jobs because they've caused so much economic stress before we even get to the election, right? And so I don't know, they're in a really tough position here. Like I said, there are a lot of signs that maybe inflation kind of sticks around, that it doesn't come back down to 2 or 2.5% anytime soon. Maybe it stays elevated at 4 or 5 or 6% or worse. And if that's the case, what does it look like when the Fed does have to flip dovish in that environment? When people are forced to spend considerably more on non-discretionary things than they did in the past, like shelter and food and gas to drive to their jobs. What does that look like for the economy? If they can't spend freely and drive expansion and speculate and do all the things that really produce an exciting bull market for market participants. How do we create that in an environment with stubbornly high costs for things that people must pay for? I don't know that we have a good answer for that. There's certainly not a recent model for that exact environment, and definitely not in the QE era. And every time in the past, like the last thing, or one of the things you mentioned, when is the Fed going to pivot? When they pivoted in 2020, which produced that hilarious, absurd, straight up market for so long, CPI was at 1.5%, and the market fell 35% in a single month. So the environment was quite different. It was much more panicky. The future was even less certain than it is now, and inflation was considerably lower. But that's not where we are now. So I think that none of the outcomes available to them are particularly attractive at this point.
I want to, Dylan, if I can jump in for a hot sec here. TX, one of the things you kind of bring up is like just some of the outlandish things that have come out of some of these government officials' mouths. You quoted Janet Yellen. To a degree, though, they have been not only wrong, but like so gloriously wrong, especially over the last 12 months with their calls on inflation. And now we're having Janet Yellen go on Meet the Press over the weekend saying that, oh, recession's probably not an issue. And we're hearing this conversation go on and on. How much of this is purely them trying to window dress for, like you allude to, the election versus them actually seeing some issues in the economy and trying to attempt to remedy those issues?
Oh, I think it's absolutely window dressing. So like the pulpit is the most powerful tool for monetary policy these days. It's the most effective. You get the quickest response. And if you look at January to now, the Fed has done exceedingly little and the market has done a lot, right? They've done 90% of the work. The Fed is still, by the measure of this exact moment, still exorbitantly accommodative compared to past history, right? The rates are still considerably low, or extremely low. What are they, like 1.25%, 1.75, something like that, Fed funds rate. And QT's only been running for a month. They've barely gotten $19 billion net off of their balance sheet. So the market has done most of the work because of their jawboning, and forward guidance. Even when it comes in the form of Janet Yellen talking about whether or not she thinks recession is likely, that's almost like another facet of forward guidance. And I've kind of had this stance, over the last few months, Q. I think that they know that we're headed for a recession. I think you could look at a host of historical references that all say we're going into a recession. I posted a chart this morning that I saw from an interview with Stanley Druckenmiller, where he pointed out that every time in history that we've gotten above 5% CPI, the only remedies were jacking interest rates up higher than inflation or a recession. And the only exceptions were when we were in the middle of war, in the middle of World War II and in the middle of the Korean War, and we were spending a lot. And we actually avoided a recession for at least year and a half. But every other instance in the past, the only remedy has been recession and or jacking up rates. Well, they're not going to jack rates up to 8%. So the only other remedy at that point is a recession. Likewise, if you look at their dot plot or the summary of economic projections that comes out of the FOMC, where they list where they think different economic indicators are going to go over the next couple of years, one of the things they mention is employment. And they think unemployment is only going to go up 0.5% from now to the end of their hiking cycle, this like plan that they have. But if you look back through history, and I posted this chart a couple of weeks ago, every single time that unemployment has risen by 0.5% from its low, every time there has been a recession, going all the way back to like 1950. So when you think about the Fed saying these things, and I know Yellen's not the Fed, she's the Treasury, but they're all part of the same gang, right? When you hear them saying things like, we believe the economy is strong, we think it can tolerate all this hiking, we think that we're going to avoid a recession, all of history is suggesting that they are dead wrong and that their statements are not backed by historical data, which means that they must be backed by either feelings or just a desire to manipulate sentiment. So that's where my stance is. I think you're 100% right. It's just window dressing, because if they were to just come out and say, listen, guys, the economy's headed into the shitter and we're probably in a recession now, and it'll be really obvious in a couple more weeks. If they actually said that, which is probably very true, the market would reprice itself into hell with the quickness, right? It would be violent and it would be swift. And I think that could lead to an illiquid treasury market. It could lead to blowouts of corporate bond spreads, something that actually forces them to act with more urgency, with more alacrity. And I don't think they want that, because inflation is still so high because of the situation I was just describing, where they're forced to ease into stubbornly elevated costs. They'd like to delay that inevitability as long as possible. So they're just going to keep putting lipstick on the pig until the pig kicks them in the face.
Now, is this though, like, let's backtrack this a little bit, and I'll start by saying, like, I believe we are already in the midst of a recession. I don't need to wait until Thursday when the official reading comes out for Q2. And then I don't need Yellen or the Biden administration to move the goalpost and say, like, actually, no, the group of 7 economists will dictate to us whether or not we're in a recession. I personally just believe we are in a recession. However, that's starting to feel like the majority. Dylan, you posted, I believe, last week on Twitter 3 different questions to just the Twitter sphere asking, do people think the bottom in equities, Bitcoin, and bonds separately are in? And an overwhelming majority said no to all 3 questions. The markets, in my limited experience of trying to trade and invest in them, have tended to go the exact opposite direction of where the majority thinks. And if the majority of people think we are in a recession, and the majority of people think that the bottoms of all these different things are not yet in, does that not leave the possibility that I feel weird saying it because I don't genuinely believe these things, but is it possible that we actually may somehow skirt a recession, that we may have actually already seen the bottom of everything, and that possibly Luke Groman is right, and that August is going to be when they reverse, and when they reverse, everything will just shoot straight back up, almost like a K-shaped recovery 2.0?
Yeah, I'll just say that the sample size was probably pretty biased in those polls, but I'll let TX rip on that, and the probability that we start going up only again and we we avoid a recession somehow.
Yeah, that's not my base case. And to be fair to Luke Groman's thesis, I think he's been pretty clear in saying, while I do believe that calling for end of August is maybe a little aggressive, he has said that it will be because something unravels extremely quickly, and we haven't even seen it yet. Like we just see the poke of the iceberg through the water, but he believes that something is going to unravel in the markets very quickly over the next couple of months, and that will force them to pivot. It won't just be that we're in the kind of conditions we're in today, but they just kind of look around and maybe think inflation is getting better, and we go, well, we can't keep tightening, guys. We got to turn this ship around. He thinks something significantly bad is going to take place between now and that event horizon. I don't know what that is. I think, I listened to a conversation with him and Lynn Alden this morning, and I think he was focusing on the treasury markets. And if you look at the MOVE index, which is like the VIX for the bond market, it is really elevated, and it's almost at 2020 levels. It's been moving more slowly than it did in 2020. Somehow the market is remaining solvent, even though it's probably the least liquid it has been in a very long time. So that's definitely concerning, and you have to imagine they're paying close attention to that. But just in terms of, have we bottomed? Could we avoid a recession? I don't know that we can avoid a recession at this point. Just based on historical trends, that would be a severe outlier case, especially when you consider that the Fed has never been this late in beginning to raise interest rates into an economic slowdown. Like, you already have PMIs rolling over super hard. There's so many other aspects of the economy that have begun to really grind their brakes or hit the brakes, but they waited to begin raising rates until we were already in that phase. And so they're considerably behind the curve here. And when you think about and you look at past recessionary periods, there's usually a couple of more shoes that drop, more things that unfold. And those two things, one of them relates to unemployment. Now, I know we talked a lot about the labor market changing. Maybe it's a little different from how it was a few years ago, but we still have seen zero movement in unemployment. It's absolutely flatlined since March at 3.6%. And also, earnings have not really responded to the fact that the market is, reached bear market territory. It's still like 15, 18% down from the highs. And consumers are getting squeezed, man. I mean, if you look at retail sales nominal versus inflation adjusted, one of them is still going up, nominal sales. The other one is flat, completely flat, inflation adjusted. So people are spending more money, and it's making companies be able to post positive, earnings reports, but the actual units being moved is less. People are taking home less. If you look at wages, average hourly earnings over the last few years, both real and nominal wages are positive. People are getting a raise at like 5%, but their actual real wages are negative. People have been taking a pay cut since April of last year, before we got high inflation prints. If you go look at real average hourly earnings, it has been negative since April 2021. So people have experienced more than a calendar year of taking an actual real pay cut, even though their nominal earnings have grown. And so like that can only be sustained for so long. And in the past, when we get close to these recessionary periods and you start seeing all these indicators flashing red, earnings always comes down. And we haven't seen that yet, especially in inflationary spikes. If you look at the 40s, if you look at the 70s, when we had big inflationary spikes, corporate earnings came down noticeably and unemployment rose. And neither one of those two things have happened yet, which suggests to me that we still have another leg of this story to play out, whatever form that takes. I don't know if that means everything, all assets nuke a whole other, level of hell. I don't know, but those things have not played out just yet. And it seems to me that unemployment at the very least has to change when you look at initial claims rising since March. It's up, I think 50% from the lows. And you look at the part-time for economic reasons on the employment report, that's going up. That usually happens before unemployment waves. So there's just a lot of things flashing out there. And I find it very difficult to build a realistic case that we avoid a recession at this point.
Building off that, if you're just thinking about risk assets, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's equities, there's a lot of talk and I think we just did witness the biggest absolute capitulation event in Bitcoin's history. I mean, in absolute size, it's no question. In relative size, you could, say, certain events were bigger. Like, I mean, March 2020, we nuked 50% in, a 24-hour period. So, obviously, but just in absolute terms, the amount of forced selling that we saw and absorption that occurred is just massive, right? In the scale of billions and billions and billions of dollars. But I think what people are discounting is like, okay, when someone asks who's left to sell, well, if we enter a recession, who's left to sell is people that want to, eat or put a house over their head, or
Right.
I understand that the billionaires of the world and Michael Saylor, or maybe not Michael Saylor because or MicroStrategy because they have the debt structure, but these big whales aren't going to sell to put food on their plate, but your pleb stacker or your retail investor that's just trying to build a retirement portfolio, like if you get laid off or just things happen, right? A recession is a lot of ugly outcomes occur, not just in the US but globally, right? You're going to need liquidity, and it's just a matter of prices set at the margin for every asset. So it's like, okay, who's the marginal buyer versus the marginal seller? Well, we know in Bitcoin, but really more so in equities, but also there's a big DCA kind of culture, or a bunch of people dollar cost averaging Bitcoin every single day, week, just buying. But a lot of these flows for these asset classes are just based on passive allocation, and then that requires a job. That requires your income for there to be a difference between your income and your expenses, right? And so when you see people's margins, whether it's at a corporate level or just consumer level, really get squeezed because of this inflationary impulse. And then now we're starting to see the labor market turnover at the same time that you've seen the wealth effect just kill the asset side of people's balance sheets, at the same time where the liability side of people's balance sheets and the debt service that you have to pay is growing because of interest expense, right? All these things are saying, hey, like, we've seen a pretty big capitulation. We've seen a pretty big drawdown, especially for Bitcoin. But, where's that marginal buyer? And are we sure we're not going to test that level again and potentially go lower, right? Like a lot of the, like TX, you were at Glassnode, a lot of the on-chain stuff we look at, like in terms of cyclical kind of metrics and all of that, right? It's like, okay, wow, this is capitulation. We're below the average cost basis of Bitcoin holders, like realized price. Is this the bottom generational buying opportunity every time it's happened before that? But like we were never in the midst or actually headed into a global recession before,
Right.
as this has already happened, but we haven't even had potentially the worst of the economic outcomes yet.
That is so true. And that's a conversation, particularly as it relates to identifying value zones and bottoms and things with like on-chain metrics is, everything we have on Bitcoin is predicated upon its existence in a long-term secular bull market where, mistakes were forgiven or optimism is rewarded. And that behavior is vastly different from the non-accommodative environment we're in now. And I think you made a great point, like who's left to sell? Well, that's a question you ask in a trending market, right? That's a question you ask when there is a bid under the price and there is an appetite for speculation. There is a desire to take on risk, to take on leverage, to bet on price. Like you need those ingredients in the pot. And because of, everything we were talking about, a lot of that has been removed, and people's discretionary budgets are squeezed, and companies' discretionary budgets are squeezed. Funds are being squeezed. So there's this idea that there's all this money just sitting on the sidelines, like waiting to pour back into things at the furthest end of the risk curve. At the first hint of dovishness, to me, doesn't really ring true with the landscape that we're looking at here, particularly when you think about how hard the average consumer has been squeezed. And, I hear a lot about how people just have so much cash. They're sitting on so much money. Everything's going to be fine. But, you have to really look at the distribution of that money. There's been a lot of different reports, but there's a chart you can look at on the Federal Reserve website called checkable deposits and currency. And that's basically like people's checking accounts, their cash, like the closest thing to their liquid money that they have in commercial banks. And the distribution of it is, yes, there's more of it now than there used to be, but the vast majority of it is owned by the top 10%. And the bottom 90% have lost a significant portion of market share. And they actually now have the lowest market share of checkable deposits and currency since I can see back when the data began in like 1990. So yeah, there's a bunch of money, but it's not evenly distributed. It's sitting at the upper echelons of the income brackets with people who have a lower marginal propensity to spend that money, right? So that there are imbalances in where all of this like extra cash, so to speak, is sitting in the market. Whereas the most people are like what you described, Dylan. They're worried about like, how are they going to eat? Am I still going to have a job? And their allocation to the market is predicated upon the existence of that job and of discretionary income, neither of which seems super secure over the next 6 months to 12 months for a lot of people on the margins.
Yeah, it's also, I think, worth pointing out, and all of us here at Bitcoin Magazine, BM Pro, TX yourself included, I would definitely assume are huge Bitcoin bulls over the long term. I don't even assume that, I know that. But like, let's just be objective and let's be realistic here. And we've talked about this in previous shows. The last few months of just events and turmoil in the crypto, I focus on Bitcoin, but let's just, the broader crypto industry have been not great, right? And so although we view Bitcoin over the long term as this pristine asset, a mutable 21 million, we know the drill, right? Absolute scarcity for the first time. We discovered it with Bitcoin, whether it was invented or discovered, right? We all know this, and over the long term, we have this pristine monetary asset that has basically an engineered production cost engineered to increase in perpetuity, right? But over the short term, Bitcoin is trading like the riskiest of risk assets. I guess maybe not riskiest. You have some, altcoins or maybe some low cap stocks or whatever, but it's hyper volatile. It's basically beta on equities, and it's uncovered that all this fraud and hidden off balance sheet leverage existed in the industry, right? And so for people to say like, even if the Fed pivots, but let's just assume the Fed's going to, wait for some more pain, for there to be a bottom to be in, you need some big buyers to come in. And for all the legacy funds and participants in the sidelines, if you're talking about that top 10 percentile of income earners or, of asset holders that have all of the cash in the economy, that have all that dry powder, for them to say, hey, I'm going to go make a sizable allocation to this, hyper volatile asset that doesn't even produce an income stream, right? I understand the long-term bull case, and I articulate it to a lot of those people. At least I attempt to. But at the current moment, right, and I understand that Bitcoin is black market money, etc. Right, but the regulation or the lack of regulation in this space, and I'm not calling for more regulation. I'm just saying this is the reality here. A lot of fraud and a lot of questionable business was kind of uncovered over the last 2 months. And to think that Bitcoin and this far right risk of risk assets is going to all of a sudden catch a monstrous bid and shoot to all-time highs, or V-shaped recovery like it did in the summer of 2021, I think is just to put it frank, is somewhat delusional at the current moment. I mean, I would love to be wrong as a Bitcoin holder, right? But like, just let's be objective here. It's going to take some time. I mean, we've had, for the most part, a pretty large scale price capitulation event. I think Sam and I have talked about, and we've put some pieces out. I think what we're in for, whether we go a lot lower, and we could always chop another 50% lower, but what we're in for now is the time-based capitulation, where the speculators, which have already basically all of them have gone, but the frauds, they're all getting washed out. The real builders are here to stay. They're actually building something meaningful long term, and whenever equities do get bid again, whenever up only happens, yeah, Bitcoin will catch a bid as well. But really, we're in for some time here to wash out the excess of this mania bull run we just had.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And it's hard to have this conversations with. Depends on the audience of Bitcoiners, I suppose. Some Bitcoiners it's hard to have this conversation with, but when you think about it, what we're engaging in right now is a contraction of the money supply, which is the opposite of debasement. And debasement is what Bitcoin is meant to protect against, right? And so if fiat is not being debased currently, but is being the opposite of that, then during this period of time, it necessarily weakens that particular value proposition of Bitcoin, that aspect of it. There are other aspects, obviously, but the one that I think people pay the most attention to is it an inflation hedge? I would say the inflation is monetary inflation that it's hedging against, not prices going up. But it's a hedge against monetary inflation, against debasement of the currency. And right now we're seeing the opposite of that. So I think that it makes sense that this kind of environment is not one that is very welcoming to things like Bitcoin or gold, for that matter, even though gold obviously has its own problems. But for that kind of appetite you're talking about to come back just by the Fed, appearing more accommodative, I think is a little bit of a stretch, just because of the other risks to the economy. I think that I don't really know what I'm trying to articulate exactly here, but I think that it makes sense for Bitcoin not to exactly be the flavor of the month in this particular environment, but to excel dramatically as soon as debasement, is added back to the menu. Did we lose Dylan?
Sorry, I'm back here. had to run or get something real quick. Q, you want to just fire off the next question? I missed the last minute there.
No, you're fine. I was trying to find where this tab was because I had too many tabs open. I want to talk a little bit now about the upcoming Fed meeting this week. We're supposed to hear final verdict on if we're going to get a 75 or 100 basis point hike. We've talked a lot about what the Fed fund rate sits at now. I believe it's at about 1.5% to 1.75. Stanley Druckenmiller has also come out and said, the Fed can't really afford to go past that 3.5 number, as the cost of those interest payments would just put them so underwater at that point. TXMC, you alluded to the fact that there are only a couple of different solutions. One of them, raise rates higher than inflation. Another one, just let the economy sort of crater into a recession. Where are your expectations on this upcoming week and just sort of the Fed's upcoming sort of positioning, if you will, and posturing of what they're going to have to do for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, I think 75 is pretty much a lock. I'd be surprised if they did something other than that. And that would put the Fed funds rate about 2.5%, which is where it peaked in 2018. And it's not that far away from the 2-year yield at that point. And when you look back in history, every time the Fed funds rate has met the 2-year yield in a hiking cycle, that's been the end of the hikes, going all the way back 40 years. So it would seem like with the 2-year currently sitting, where is it? I think it's around 3%. I don't have my chart in front of me right now. It was at like 3.1%, 3% the other day. It seems like the bond market is having a significant problem pricing in the actual target of the Fed funds rate by the end of their plans, right? No matter how much they scream about 3.5%, 3.8%, whatever numbers they're throwing around, the bond market just can't seem to get there. It seems to be calling scoreboard on the Fed's plans. And so I think that there's some signal in there. And, as we just got a 9.1 CPI print, I think it's reasonable to assume that the next print in August for the current month will probably not be that high. When you see what's going on with commodity prices, with oil prices, with gasoline, everything, major inputs to CPI are coming down. I think it makes sense that the print will be high, but it's not going to be 9.1. And, that will probably give them a little bit of breathing room to not necessarily feel like they have to hike 75 basis points again. But I agree with Stanley Druckenmiller that they will reach a point before long where the cost of maintaining the debt is simply too high, because let's think about it. We've got $30 trillion of public debt, and they're paying in an ongoing basis for this. People think we never pay off the debt. That's not true. We're paying on it all the time. It's just that we're constantly adding more of it, right? So the load never actually goes away, but we pay every month. And in the month of May, we paid $50 billion on interest expense alone, which is the most we've ever paid in a single month. Last year, the federal government paid close to $390 billion, $385 billion just to keep the debt from defaulting, just to pay interest expense. That's more than half of the defense budget. And they did that with an average interest rate on all public debt of only about 1.6%. And that's across all the maturities in the public debt. And they're always rolling that debt over into new maturities. They're constantly reinvesting it every month, different pieces of it. And as rates go higher and stay elevated as they are, stay higher than the zero bound, that necessarily puts a slow upward pressure on the average interest rate of all the public debt. So the cost of it naturally goes up. And it's going up faster than the rate at which we are whittling down the debt via the liquidation of government debt playbook we talked about earlier. So there's an actual accelerating cost to maintaining the debt that we have and to not defaulting on it. And when you think about a withering economy, which has less consumer spending powers GDP. It's like 68, 69% of GDP, more than 2/3 of the economy is people spending money. And so when the economy is weakening, when the costs are elevating, when businesses are letting people go or talking about freezing hiring, there's a lot of there's more trepidation and there's less spending. And as a result, tax receipts weaken. Now, they just took in a bunch of money from the 2021 tax year, but over the next few months, because the market has been in decline the entire year, tax receipts will necessarily start declining. And they're declining into rising Social Security costs, elevated defense spending. There's only so many places they can really cut corners before at some point they're required to become the buyer of last resort and monetize their debt to pay their obligations. And I think that wall where they have to start making serious decisions about, well, do we choose not to pay for our defense spending? Do we choose to default on US treasuries? Not going to happen. Or do we print and create some money to pay off these obligations and kick the can of responsibility once more? I think that they will do that. And I think that probably will come in before they get anywhere close to their 3.5% target that they set for themselves.
What I can understand is I don't have the data in front of me, but I saw, I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, I saw a U.S. debt by maturities chart. Just a graphic of what debt they have, the short end and the long end, and how much of that they had. And I can't understand for the life of me when rates for on a 30-year debt was 100 bips, 150 bips, why they didn't roll more of that debt over in the long term, right? I mean, obviously there had to be willing buyers there, but a lot of that debt and post COVID, when rates were still low and CPI expectations were still very low, they issued short term maturity debt, which I can't understand for the life of me. It's like, what are you guys doing? Why wouldn't you roll that over 10 year, 20 year, 30 years if you wanted to kick the can, right? Like, I don't understand why policymakers, why the Treasury, I'm not sure who's calling the shots there, but why the Treasury didn't roll that over to longer term maturities.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm not super satisfied with my opinion on why I think that is, but it's something I probably would look into. I probably want to look into that a little more and try to figure it out.
I guess just lastly, your charts are fantastic on some of that stuff. Sam and I have been in awe on some of that, like the Treasury and the interest expense and that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we're close to wrapping up here. We got a couple more minutes. Want to thank you for coming on and giving, kind of riffing with us. This is a YouTube live, so we'll have a link if you want to share that with, your Twitter followers or whatnot. We'll probably post this on our Substack as well for our subscribers. And if you just want to give one more handoff into what you do, Alpha Beta Soup and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Always great to talk to you. It's the first time we've all been on video chat together, so that's pretty cool. Usually I'm just on Twitter Spaces with y'all. But yeah, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm always happy to come back on here. If you're listening to me and you enjoy what we've been talking about, I post content about this all the time on Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel called Alpha Beta Soup, which you can get to in my Twitter bio, or go to YouTube and look for Alpha Beta Soup with TXMC. You'll find me. And I try to talk about what's going on in the economy, and it's centered around Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of the nucleus from which all of my economic analysis, springs forth. And so I try to make it entertaining and educational, and you can just kind of see where my mind is going, because I'm not I don't have a traditional finance background. I barely even graduated from high school. I'm just trying to educate myself on this fascinating world that I live in. So come along with me, and we'll figure some things out. And the last thing I'll just say is, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy. Obviously, we just spent an hour talking about how it's a big shit storm and no one really knows what's going to happen. But one thing that I have very high conviction in is the cyclical nature of humans and their relationship with paper money. It usually always ends in a failure of that money and a return to hard assets and to sound money by civilization. This has happened over and over again for millennia. And I strongly believe we are in a phase of that happening for our civilization now. And for the first time in our history, we have a digital commodity available as an escape valve in Bitcoin. I think it stands to benefit tremendously. And while the timeline is very uncertain, and it's going to be non-linear. It's not, if you look at a chart of the marks to gold in Weimar, Germany, it's non-linear. But I do believe it will happen in our lifetimes. And the real asymmetry is knowing that end game far in advance. And when you think about the fact that there's only 1% of US net worth that is allocated to the crypto space broadly, according to Bank of America, we're still extremely early. So that gives me high conviction, and that's the basis of my whole thesis. So, yeah.
What a way to end it. Boom.
Dylan, Sam, do you want to remind everyone about Bitcoin Magazine Pro?
Yeah. If you want to kind of, get more content like this, like we talked about today, we post some similar stuff around Bitcoin, macroeconomics, derivatives, the whole 9 yards. That's what we do at Bitcoin Magazine Pro. That's what similar to what TXMC does with Alpha Beta Soup. So check us out, bitcoinmagazinepro.com. We're putting out this content, and we'll probably relay this over to you guys on the Substack later today or tomorrow. So appreciate everyone tuning in. This was a fun rip.
Sam, can you just say hello to the audience so we can acknowledge that you said one word today? And you're
Oh, he's
muted.
muted.
Still muted.
No words today. All good.
All right. I will remind everyone, TXMC, I always love your Twitter threads and I love your content. I'm so grateful that you came on camera and joined us today. I'll probably hound you for one of our next spaces or just bug you to come here. Thank you for coming. Dylan and Sam, as always, it's a pleasure to get to talk to Dylan this week. Dylan this week and last week. Sam, it was lovely to see your pretty face. Subscribe to Bitcoin Magazine Pro. There's a free tier. The content they give you guys and the work they put into this is truly remarkable and it's worth your time. So hop on over, subscribe. It's listed on Dylan's Twitter page as well as Sam's. And I want to remind everyone, tickets to Bitcoin Amsterdam are on sale. That's a wrap. It's Monday. I'm exhausted. We'll be back tomorrow with another jam-packed episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live.